And we are recording.
Great. And I think we should just mute participants just to start as well. Okay. Chief, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so if we're fine, I'm gonna call the meeting to order, if that works for everyone. I just pull up my agenda, which I just lost. So I'd like to make a motion to open the October 15th Town Board as New Paltz Police Commission meeting.
Second, David.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And then I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda. Is there anything, Chief, that we're missing on this agenda that you want to add?
I think the only add was discussion relative to the sex offenders being housed at the Econo Lodge and the town of Lloyd ordinance relative to that.
Okay, awesome. So let's add that. And then with that amendment, does anyone want to second the approval of the agenda?
I'll second the agenda.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we're on to announcements. Chief, do you have any additional announcements for us?
So yes, just October 24th is the National Drug Take Back Day. And once again, the police department is going to be participating in that. It's the DEA, it's run through the DEA, and it's twice a year. And then anybody can bring any unwanted, unused medications for disposal. Obviously, we have our box at the police station, which is accessible to the public 24/7. But we do participate in this, and then we turn over the seized, not seized, excuse me, the unwanted medications and, to the DEA for disposal, and that'll be on the 15th. Excuse me, on the 24th. On October 22nd, the Reform and Reinvention Collaborative will be holding a virtual town hall meeting from 7 to 9 p.m. It will be a Zoom meeting. There are links posted on the committee's page on the town website, as well as the police department's calendar there. And last but not least, we held our October conversations with the police today over at the Water Street Market. We had about 5 or 6 people attend. Our next meeting will be the third Thursday in November, and that's going to be November 19th. Not sure yet if this will be an outdoor or a Zoom. It's just going to be weather dependent. So the time will be determined, and we'll try to advertise that on our social media page as well as the local paper. And that's all I have in terms of announcements.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. Relative to our agenda, since Neil is just running a little late, I'm going to recommend, if there's no objection, to actually go into public input while we wait for him to join, so then we can go into executive session. Hearing no objection, I think, to doing that, I just want to remind everyone that this is the Police Commission, Town Board as Police Commission meeting. So there are other agenda items that we will discuss at our 7 o'clock meeting as well. So let's keep our comments pertained to police and police commission related issues. And also, we're just going to ask people to have, try to keep your comments to as close as 3 minutes as possible. So with that being said, does anyone have any public comment? You want to show your hands? Okay, I think seeing none, I think we can move on to, you know what, let's do this. Do you mind going into monthly report? So then we can maybe have the other conversation with Neil in attendance as well. Are you fine with that, Chief? I think you're on mute.
Yes, I'm fine. In terms of the monthly report, I noted on there the change in personnel, the hiring of Tiffany Claude and Alexia Petrolesi. They have begun their field training, or Tiffany has begun her field training, and I think she's in day 2 or 3 of that. The vehicle, a patrol unit that was involved in an accident on September 20th has been repaired and it's back in service. In terms of the calendar of events for that, that I submitted, again, we're continuing outreach to community members. I met with the Redeemer Lutheran congregation on September 18th, just to discuss policing issues, social justice issues. And the other thing I want to point out is that, we're continuing to participate in the virtual Narcan trainings and the distribution of Narcan kits to members of the community, and that seems to be going real well. On the as far as the detective division is concerned, just a one case to note that the detectives have been working pretty hard in relation to residential burglaries. There have been a rash of burglaries, vacant homes, copper piping being stolen. The detective division has been working with state police, sheriff's department, as well as some other police agencies in the county. A suspect has been identified. We have some evidence that we're just waiting for, but as it says in the report, we're working with the DA's office, and we believe an arrest, will be made within the next couple weeks. In relation to there was a detective division has conducted an investigation relative to a possible hate crime that occurred in the village. A young woman was walking along North Chestnut Street. A vehicle had driven past her, and the occupants had yelled racial slurs out at her. And so the detectives, as well as patrol, moved on that investigation. At this point, the investigation is open, but we have at this point exhausted all leads. We know what vehicle, we have the vehicle on video. Unfortunately, nothing where we're able to read the plate. So we're not able to identify the specific vehicle or the individuals that are involved. But we've been in contact with the victim, just letting them know what where we're at with all this, and obviously hoping maybe some new leads would pan out. And then just the other part on there is that the lieutenant conducted the annual evidence room audit, and the audit was it's basically a sampling of 100 items to ensure proper packaging, labeling, storage, things of that nature, and it's per the accreditation. Per accreditation, we have to conduct an annual audit and an annual sample of the evidence room. So this was conducted in September as well, and the report's been filed and it'll be held on record with us for that. Any questions on any of that stuff? So we had I think 4 letters of commendation. The first was one for the police department. The staff at Ulster County Pool had sent an email just thanking us, as well as the Sheriff's Department, for their assistance over the summer at the pool. Unfortunately, we ended up responding out there to assist the staff with patrons, just due to COVID the admittance to the pool was limited to county residents, and so issues arose on several occasions. And we were out there, and just the staff was very thankful for all the assistance we were able to provide. The next one was thank you, a phone call that one of the dispatchers took, and relative to Officers James in town. This was in response to a suspicious person call. The caller was just real appreciative of the efforts that the officers made in terms of their handling it, and wanted just to say thank you regarding that. The next is a letter that I received for Officer Yant, the parent of from a parent who was very thankful for everything that Officer Yant did to help their child. This was a late night phone call from a very worried parent who could not make contact with their child, and Officer Yant was able to locate the individual and was able to get them connected with the parent and help them out. And it just they were very appreciative for what they did and for all that. And the last letter of commendation was for Officer Milton. It's a letter that was a thank you to both the town of Saugerties and the town of New Paltz Police Departments from an individual who had lost their wallet, and just was appreciative of us getting their property back to them, and sent that letter. There are no defensive action reports for this month. In terms of training, the only thing I did want to point out on here is Officers James and Bolson, along with, it's not noted on here, but Sergeant Lewis participated in a reality-based scenario training with the Ulster County Emergency Services team. It was a scenario that combined both crisis negotiation and USERT together. They do that on an annual basis, where it entails an actual call out and response. So that was really helpful for them. Other than that, I have nothing else in the report of note, unless anybody has any questions.
Chief, in looking at this month's report, I see there's a section called complaints against personnel. Is that the first time we're seeing that? I mean, is that based on the request last time that, in addition to commendations, to please include any complaints against personnel, or has that always been there on the report?
That's always been there. What we do differently now, any complaint against the personnel, or most are going to now generate an IA as well. So unless it's something that we're able to resolve with an individual in the moment, we had something like that similar with Town Council Person Bear, where we were able to meet with the individual. It didn't ultimately result in an IA, just based upon the circumstances and where they were and their satisfaction. But that could potentially be, more often than not, that's going to be something that when we get a complaint and an IA is going to be open. And then down below, I have the pending investigations, where those would be IAs, and then any closed investigations are relative to internal affairs investigations.
Thank you.
Yep.
Neil,
Rob, I have one question.
Oh, sorry.
Just a quick one. Has there been any more information as to the individuals who did those racial slurs against that young lady? Was there any progress on that? Do we know who did that?
No, that was the case. I explained that we were, we've exhausted all leads. We have the car on video.
Okay.
It's a Jersey plate. We know the vehicle. We spoke with the victim. She ID'd that vehicle. Unfortunately, we're just not, no plate, without the plate, we can't identify that specific vehicle, that vehicle, and then the occupants.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry I'm late, everyone.
No problem, Neil. I just wanted to give you a quick update. We moved some things around for you, so we've already done public comment and the monthly report. we wanted to have the one discussion item with you, and we have yet to go to executive session.
Great. So we're well ahead of schedule. Maybe we didn't need to start at 6 o'clock. But we
I
want
also
to make
just
sure.
wanted to mention that I see that Essie and Randall are on, and I imagine that they want to just give an update as well. I meant to mention that earlier.
Yeah, well, I'm more than we can. If they want to do the update, we could do that right now. If you guys are interested in giving an update, we would love to hear it. If not, that's fine.
Essie, do you want to go or?
Essie, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Sorry, I was not expecting to give an update, but we did just come from a meeting, so I think I can just fill you on what's going on now, and then, of course, the chief or Randall can add in anything that I've left out. So we are currently planning to meet with several groups, specifically, let me back up. In October or next week, we're having a town hall, and I think you'll see the link for that on our webpage on the town board site. And then subsequently after that, every week in November, and sometimes twice a week, we'll be having meetings with specific groups and stakeholders to get their input. And that's basically what we've been planning up until this time. We've also discussed with the board, the joint boards, our need for a small budget. And so we did come up with the amount of $2,400. Either one of you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. I have not had a chance to talk to Dan about it, which is why I wasn't planning on saying anything today, but just since I'm here, I might have
Surprise.
just put it out there since I'm here. Let you guys mull that over for us. And again, that amount of money would be for a researcher to help us compile some data, as well as perhaps do some writing for us or some editing perhaps. So those are really the items that we've discussed most recently. Did I leave anything out, Chief or Randall?
No, other than, I mean, you didn't leave it out, but I think it's important that the members know that most of us will be attending the defensive, what is it? The defensive action training that is going to be held on the 25th of October. It's important for us to take a look at that. We're just getting all prepped for the meeting on the 21st, which will also be live streamed. Supposedly somebody has to push a record button, and that will make it work on the public access channel and every other place. I haven't figured out yet how we're going to moderate this, but I guess we'll figure that out when we get there. So that's that.
Great.
Questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like I've heard two dates. I feel like I heard October 22nd and October 21st for this meeting. So I just want to clarify for the public.
It's the
date.
22nd, October 22nd from 7 to 9 p.m. And it will be a Zoom meeting. And that link was posted today. And I also shared that with the Public Access Committee, so they have it. And they also, and I forgot to mention this, they also put up, they apparently run a bulletin board on the Public Access channel when they're not running actual programming or recording meetings live. So they put up on the bulletin board there that the meeting will be held on the 22nd. And we also had something in the newspaper, I believe that came out today or Wednesday.
Yep. So folks who are looking for information on that, it's on the town website under news and notices, and you'll see the October 22nd information there. This is the place to for the public to be heard. And so if you've been interested in wanting to share your views, please tune in.
I know Essie, just one last quick thing. I know Essie mentioned that we were meeting with people in October, and I will tell you it's in November. I believe we're looking at close to 7 to 8 groups that will be having actual sit downs, individual groups as opposed, I mean, they can come and participate at the town hall, but we're trying to give groups that have a special interest and special needs an opportunity to come and sit with us for an hour and a half, again, in a Zoom, which we need to set that up so that they can talk about their concerns and issues for us to take back to the table and work through.
Okay. So you guys, you did the monthly report and we did the public input. And so we have executive session, and then we're going to have this discussion about sex offender housing. You guys want to go into executive session and then come back out? We can put everyone in the waiting room and turn the recording off. Or would people like to have the discussion about sex offender housing?
I'd love to do the discussion first, just because
Okay.
we're already in discussion with the public here. So this would be a good opportunity just to continue. And people can tune out after executive session if they want.
Yeah, so the background is, we've been getting some calls and emails. There are a number of notices that have gone out to the public about registered sex offenders who are now residing in the town of New Paltz at the
Econo Lodge.
Econo Lodge, and so the chief looked into it a little bit, and I don't know if I want to hand it over to Chief Lucchese or not. Please step in if I make any mistakes. My understanding is that this hotel has registered as a location where the county can house these offenders for a month, and that the county pays for their room for 1 month while they're transitioning, and that it's the only one in Ulster County currently. I think I believe that people, they're allowed by law to live there, and I think we as a society have an obligation to let people who have served their time. They have a right to live there, but we need to kind of set limits on that to some extent. And we have other towns around us have these laws where there's just some regulation put in place where it limits the total number of sex offenders that can be in a single place. And they also have to have a license, and the business has to register. And so we wanted to have a discussion. Are people interested in doing something like that in New Paltz? I probably did not describe it well, but we sent that law around to people. We can have a discussion. And Chief, if I mischaracterized anything, please correct me.
The only thing, it's the state, not the county. And just to give people numbers, there are currently 4 level 3 offenders, and all under post-release supervision. And I believe there are 2 more that are registering today or tomorrow. One is a level 2 and one is a level 3. So that would be so then we'd have 6 by the end of the week.
And so this law, just regulates the total number that are allowed to be in residence at a location. And if I understand it right, it adds up. There's a point total that is allowed to be there, and that's based on the level, right? So you could have, if it's 6, you could have 6 level 1s, you could have 2 level 3s or 3 level 2s. I'm assuming that's how it goes, right? And then there are rules for the establishments that they have to follow as well. And I want to say I think this is partially due to COVID, right? The these businesses are having a hard time making ends meet. And I recognize that, and I do acknowledge that they're doing this because they have no other choice possibly. And so but I also think that we have an obligation to make sure that we have we set limits and we have some rules in place to make sure that everyone is safe and comfortable. And so that's why we're having discussion about possibly enacting this local law. And if anyone else has any thoughts, we could talk about it.
Well, I think I don't see Neil, but I mean, I find it concerning, probably because it's such a large number of people in that one hotel, I agree with you that I think that everybody needs a chance to their regular life. I think it's super important in our penal system. But I also, as a mom, I'm concerned, you hear about that. You're not just one or two, but it's like a whole group of offenders, sex offenders in one hotel that's very close to our streets, very close to our kids. And I think it's difficult for the community. So I would like there to be a limit to the amount that could be housed. I think that would be wise. I think there might be a reason why other towns have done that as well. And I also feel very strongly that it should be a public notice of who these people are, so that you can recognize them, so you know who they are if they're out in public. I think that that's important too. And I think that whoever has been in that position are probably aware that it's public knowledge who they are. It isn't hidden, their images are available. But I think for the safety and for maybe the family comfort, I think it would be important to have it be very transparent.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, we just received a letter today from the town with 2 of them being identified with pictures. And I did see on Jack's, when I was shopping there, he's got posted too. And I would just suggest people post those photos so people can know who they are and personally, take care of themselves. But I was happy to see that I received something in the mail today, and my kids were reading that and being like, yep, these are guys who are living here now. And it's important for people to know it. So I'm glad we're being transparent in this process.
So I think I agree. I think as a society, I guess maybe I have not worded it well. As a society, I think we have an obligation, but I don't think it's New Paltz's responsibility to bear all of that weight for the entire county. So for me, that's one of the rationales for putting a limit on the total number. And if people are okay with that, we have the law from another town. We can discuss it. If people don't have any changes that they want to make for this particular law, we can have the town's attorney write up the seeker and the notice. And at our next town board meeting, we can do the seeker, and then we can set a date for the public hearing, and then we'll be able to pass this law probably in November.
Sounds like the chief has a question.
Just really a comment, just to piggyback on the notification, just to give everybody or the community an idea of how this works. We receive notification from either the Department of Corrections or from parole or an agency that was previously supervising an offender. We meet with those offenders, we fill out paperwork, and then we will create the posters that you are seeing. We will, the way the process works is we send, with level 2s and level 3s offenders, we will send that information out to vulnerable entities as well as making public notification. So those flyers go out to school districts, businesses in town that have been through the Sex Offender Registry Act that are identified or deemed as vulnerable entities. And then we now are posting those on our Facebook page as well. So any one of those notices, they go out on our Facebook page for people. Just a little bit of more information. The Sex Offender Registry Act requires that an offender register with law enforcement. And depending upon the level of offender, there may be required to check in every 90 days, every year, and so on and so forth. Restrictions in terms of their comings, goings, activities, those are only in effect while the individual is on some sort of post-release supervision. So once an offender is no longer supervised by parole or probation, they have no other restrictions other than to regularly check in with law enforcement. Should they not register an address change, things like that, then they'd be in violation and could be arrested and charged for that. But these offenders, they do have restrictions. What we're trying to find out is what information we can make public. So we are speaking to parole and probation relative to that. So I know, for example, on Halloween night, there are restrictions in place for at least 2 of these individuals. But we're going to try to, whatever information we can make public, we will continue to do so.
Thank you. So if
Neil, what's the number that you are proposing, or what law have you seen, and can you give us the details of what you're thinking about recommending, or what your thoughts are?
Yeah, a nearby town has a law already, and so my preference would be to basically mimic that law, because it's just easier for consistency sake. And Chief can correct me, but I think if a hotel or motel has 50 or fewer rooms, they can have a score of 6. So that means they can have 6 level 1 offenders, 2 level 3 offenders, 3 level 2 offenders, and that's it. And so that's that limits it. They have to, I think, post the sign that they've registered as a place that is going to house these people, and I think there's some more details. I thought I sent it around, but I can send it around again. The other town's law. It basically just
You did.
They can only have a certain number of offenders in residence, and if they go above that, they can be fined as a business. And it's just a way of us having some sort of control instead of right now, I'm not trying to be provocative or anything, but you could fill an entire hotel or motel right now with no limits, right? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but this worst case scenario,
And right now, am I correct that there are 4 level 3 offenders at that hotel? That's right, 4. Yeah.
Neil.
Like I said, you'll have one by the end of this week. You'll have 1 more level 3 and level 2 now.
Neil, are there other towns that have more restrictive laws?
I don't. You're not allowed to ban people. I don't think that's allowed. But I think you are allowed to put rules in place like this. But I have not done an extensive search. The police showed me this model law because a nearby town has this exact law. And so I thought I would, for expediency, show it to the board and see if people wanted to move forward with it. I mean, if people want to, we could look around for other laws.
Well, the language, there was a lot of, a lot to read. And so it would be great maybe if we could get some legal advice about it so that we could first get some help, following all the language in that law and perhaps consider other laws.
I mean, if people have any, if people have any other, suggestions, we could do that.
My recommendation would be to use a neighboring law because we know that that's been tested. It's also gone through a process already, and I think we have some reason to believe it's also been successful. I'm not opposed to if people think that there are amendments we can make to that law to strengthen it, but I think it would be a good start to start with that legislation.
I also agree. I like the 6-point rule, that will limit greatly who's in our community. And so I like that kind of number. I did not see it directly. I'm sure you sent it, but what was the fine for failure to comply? Do you know? Was it pretty substantial? Was it?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I mean,
the fines were set on an annual basis.
That's right. By the
town board. I don't know what they are though. I can get that information for you though.
Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing if the fine is going to be substantial enough so that they're going to comply, even in a difficult economic environment.
Yep.
I mean, I think we get to set the fines.
Yep.
So, and we could set a first fine, a second fine, and second offense that
Great.
increases with severity.
Great. I agree with David and with Dan that if we know of another town that has successfully used that law or that rule, and it's been effective and it's worked for them, and it's something that's been proven, and it's something that we could implement.
And so maybe, Chief, if you wouldn't mind, maybe if you've spoken to the chief in this other town to see if they had any thoughts on it or on the effectiveness or potential changes, I think we could do that, and we could probably have this ready to go for our next meeting. And I think that we could probably vote this in early November, either the first or the second meeting.
Okay, I will make sure I get the fine scale. I will check on, gauging their assessment of its effectiveness. And I'll also look at seeing if there are any other laws similar to that used by area police departments too.
Well, thank you. And thank you for bringing this up to us and giving us a tool to hopefully make people feel more at ease with it. So, and with if there's no more discussion, we'll make a motion to go into executive session and invite the chief in with us. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so I'm going to send people into the waiting room, and then I'm going to turn off the recording, and anyone else is more than welcome to send people into the waiting room as well. Okay, there are just 6 of us now. I think, Chief, you're the meeting host as well. And then myself, Chief Lucchese, Alex, Daniel, David, and Julie. I'm going to now pause the recording. Back in now. And I have I've restarted the recording. And I would like to make a motion to add a personnel matter to the town board agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And we now have, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the Town Board of Police Commission meeting.
Second, David.
All right. And so we
All in
have
favor?
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have about 7 minutes before the public hearing starts for the tax cap override law. So maybe I'm going to pause the recording and give people a chance to take a break for a few minutes, and we'll be back in about 5 minutes to start the public hearing. How's that? Everyone okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Yep, sounds
I'm-
good.
I'm going to get some dinner.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to start the recording, and if everyone's back, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing for the tax cap override local law.
Second, David?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and with that, I would like to open up the floor for anyone who would like to make any comments. And could another member take over for a few minutes? I have to step away and I'll be right back in 2 minutes.
Okay, I can try to do this here. So if you
If people have a comment, they can raise their hand on the chat function, and we'll listen to it. And I'll be back in about maybe 30 seconds. And if no one has any comments, we can close the public hearing or leave it open for a little while. If you're calling in, you can use *9, and then we could open the town board meeting.
Janelle, are you looking to speak?
Yes, this is Janelle Pieter. I just want to be clear. I have public comment on the proposed waivers. Is this the appropriate time to talk about that?
So this is actually a public hearing. So let me just look at the agenda specifically. Yeah, so this is specifically the public hearing. We're going to do public input on that after. So if you want to just wait till then.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll wait.
Yeah. This is just for the tax cap override law. Public hearing on the tax cap override law. Any comments on that?
No.
Anyone else looking to make a comment specifically to the tax cap override law? I think I'm not seeing any, so I think we're probably good on that end. Okay, give me 1 second here. Okay, with that, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for tonight.
Second, David?
All right, Wendy,
Any discussion?
downstairs.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. I think I think Neil might still be away, so I'm
I'm back now.
You're back, great, okay.
Great. So we're opening the town board meeting.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Sorry for all of the in and out here, everyone. So this is, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda. And I'd like to add a personnel matter.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we have, this brings us to public input. So in order to keep background noise down, please mute yourself. Attending via video can use the raise hand function to make a comment, and we'll unmute you and if you're calling in, you can use *9 to raise your hand. We'll call on people in the order that they raise their hands. Please keep comments to 3 minutes. And then after that, we want to make sure everyone gets heard, and we have a pretty full agenda tonight. So please, we have someone, an iPhone person.
I believe that's Ingrid, and Ingrid would like to make a comment.
Okay, trying to unmute her. And please.
Hi, I'm not the iPhone, but I do have a comment.
Okay.
All right, my name is Ingrid Heckel, and I'm chair of the Town of New Paltz Environmental Conservation Board, and I'd like to share some comments on behalf of our board that we submitted to the town board back in July. So we believe that the requested waivers from Trans Hudson relating to drive-through restaurants and the second story requirement should not be waived. We believe the applicant has failed to demonstrate the need for these waivers as far as proving that it's not practical to comply with the guideline, that the guideline would have an adverse impact, or that there is no reasonable alternative. Rezoning of the Gateway area was the result of a thorough and deliberate planning process to promote smart growth and environmentally sound development around the Thruway exit. The comprehensive plan amendment states as an objective for this district to knit together the village and town and transition away from auto-oriented strip commercial development. Drive-through restaurants are a core element of auto-oriented strip commercial development. They are at odds with the goals of promoting walkable mixed-use development. Furthermore, we are concerned that a drive-through restaurant would generate increased traffic through the Trans Hudson property and would likely generate increased air pollution from vehicle idling and from resulting traffic at the North Putt intersection. The applicant's June 29th cover letter furthermore stated, quote, "This location with its proximity to the Thruway exit mandates a food and beverage use," unquote. This indicates that the applicant fully intends to draw visitors from the Thruway to the drive-through restaurant, which would create a de facto rest stop at the busiest intersection in New Paltz. The original environmental review process did not consider the potential traffic impacts of a drive-through at this location. Traffic concerns at this intersection have only increased since that time with the pending relocation of fire and emergency services to North Putt Corners Road and construction of the Empire State Trail. We think that the COVID-19 pandemic is, of course, a convenient time to seek a waiver from the drive-through restaurant guideline. However, we believe that a vaccine will be widely available by the time that this project is completed. And we further note that outdoor dining is a viable alternative to drive-through dining at this location, and that there are 3 other drive-through restaurants already in the town. So I'd like to thank you for your consideration of these comments. Thank you.
Thank you. If other town board members want to also help out, we have
Daniel Kitty and iPhone.
okay, iPhone. Was,
I'm iPhone.
okay,
I'm
please,
iPhone.
Please. Go ahead.
Can I go?
Yes.
Okay. All right. This is Susan Stassen-Cohn, and my comments are by Susan Blickstein, Town Board. As you may recall, I chaired the committee that worked diligently on the vision and proposed zoning for this area. One key part of that vision was the prohibition on restaurant drive-through. I view this as an essential part of the zoning that is now in place. Our discussion, both in our committee and in public sessions, focused on ensuring that this area does not become a de facto throughway rest stop, and that the vision be less dominated by the automobile as the primary design focus of any site plan. I view the proposed drive-through as a significant impairment to the zoning we worked so hard to develop. The drive-through results in additional circulation needs, which come with additional pavement and conflicts with the vision of promoting circulation for all modes at this key location. Please note that vision was not only about addressing how all modes can be through or about the site, but includes internal movement as well. Drive-through restaurants also generate more traffic more quickly. Trips are shorter and turnover is higher. With the ability to do curbside pickup, it is also difficult to understand why this waiver is needed. Once granted, this waiver will run with the land and continue even if the current use and user change over time. As for the second story, while I am also concerned about this, it would be less of a concern for me if this creates an opportunity to creatively address concerns about drive-through traffic, coverage, and impacts on the vegetated buffer along the
I'm on a
thruway.
town board meeting. Are they still, how much longer do you think?
Please note that this buffer was intended to be free of improvements and disturbance. Reducing the parking and dropping the drive-through can make it more feasible to greatly reduce or eliminate disturbance in the required 30-foot buffer area for the Empire State Trail. And lastly, I do want to encourage any appreciation for the applicant's revisions to the site plan and the work that the planning board and town board have undertaken to improve the proposed development so that the Empire State Trail can be rerouted and amenities provided. However, as the first major development under the new zoning, allowing waivers for two key parts of the vision zoning, despite the fact that all applications for waivers stand on their own merit legally, it is a precedent that does not bode well for the future. Thank you for your time and opportunity to comment. Sincerely, Susan G. Blickman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Schneidman, and I'm a resident of the town of New Paltz. I know everyone on the board, to their credit, values bike and pedestrian safety. For this reason, I want to emphasize that Trans Hudson's current proposal would be a net loss for bike and pedestrian safety at the Route 299 Putt Corners intersection. Rerouting the Empire State Trail through the Trans Hudson site would only benefit those traveling between east and north. Bikers and pedestrians coming to and from all other directions, including to and from the high school and to and from Main Street, would either be unaffected or would face more dangerous conditions. The added danger would come from the creation of 50 feet of curb cuts along Route 299 and North Putt, entering and exiting the Trans Hudson site. The proposed driveway on Route 299 in particular was called, quote, a major safety risk by the Bike Pedestrian Committee in their July 31st, 2019 letter to the planning board, urging the planning board to block the driveway. This driveway specifically is utterly unessential. It would cross two-way bike and pedestrian traffic and would remove an existing physical barrier that currently separates the Empire State Trail from car traffic on Route 299. Because the current proposal would solve one bike and pedestrian safety problem while creating two others, the waivers before you should not be approved through a safety rationale. To the contrary, even despite the safety improvements that would come from rerouting the Empire State Trail through the Trans Hudson site, this current proposal would overall have a negative safety impact for bikers and pedestrians at this intersection unless the Route 299 driveway is removed. Although you are only supposed to be voting tonight on whether the applicant has demonstrated practical difficulties, that's the language in the code, regarding the need for zoning exemptions, it's clear that the applicant's active litigation is also on the board's mind. There is every reason to think that the applicant is using the litigation to intimidate you into voting against what you know is right. Remember, you had your own well-respected lawyer, Victoria Polidoro, involved at every stage of the rezoning process. Trust your own lawyer, not this developer that has shown for 8 years now that they act only according to narrow self-interest. There is no reason to think that the applicant would prevail in court. And while some have suggested that avoiding a lawsuit now would save the town money, I ask what will happen in the future when other developers file lawsuits and demand waivers for projects that don't even have the merit you think this one does. Granting the waivers tonight could ironically cost the town more money in the long run by setting a precedent that will embolden developers to demand even more outrageous waiver requests that the town would then have to contest one by one in court. Finally, the votes tonight are a test of your commitment to the democratic process. Do you stand up for zoning that has overwhelming popular support, that is legally sound, and which I think each of you in your heart believes in? Or do you bend to a developer, a decision that would disregard the community's mandate as well as the input of your own experts, while also materially impairing bike and pedestrian safety at this intersection and potentially causing expensive, long-lasting legal consequences for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Brown?
Okay, I'm unmuting. And I'm going to find the document. Every time I work on this document, more people sign on. So tomorrow I will send you an updated version. But in the meantime, I just want you to know that because this meeting, because public comment comes before the applicant will speak, I just want to advise you on a couple of things. The new site plan is a one-page concept plan. Trans Hudson recently argued that since its original plan was granted a negative EAF, this drawing should be granted the same status, but it is substantially different. Trans Hudson may argue that you should grant the waivers because allowing the Empire State Trail to run through the project is a community benefit with no revenue to them. The EST will bring thousands of revenue dollars, producing customers who will use their retail and fast food outlets. Trans Hudson told the planning board in September that the village was willing to provide water and sewer, but there is no will serve agreement in place. Requesting a waiver before the project has sewer and water is premature. Trans Hudson has complained that it has been before the planning board for too long. As planning board attorney Rick Golden pointed out last year, the reason this project has taken so long is that Trans Hudson has failed to provide required items in its application and often disappears for months before returning without providing the items. There are about 40 signatures on this letter, and I know that I personally am only allowed 3 minutes, but I hope that you'll give me a couple of extra minutes so that I can read this letter, which won't take long. Dear Supervisor Betez and members of the town board, we write to ask that you deny the request for waivers from our brand new gateway zoning law. These zoning changes were adopted after long and careful study by land use experts. Granting waivers to these two critical components would create a chilling precedent for undermining the work of your board and the volunteers who serve on the committees that created them. The law specifically prohibits new drive-through restaurants. 3 local drive-through restaurants already provide easy pickup and deserve our support. We don't want this site to become an on-off fast food throughway ramp, creating dangerous entrances from Route 299 and exits from North Putt Corners Road. The second story requirement is a significant community benefit. We all know about the lack of affordable housing in New Paltz. Second-story rentals can provide housing for employees and people who are trying to save for a down payment on a home. Some planning board members raised concerns about health risks in placing housing adjacent to the thruway. There is new technology that solves those problems, and the developers are well qualified to incorporate them into safe, affordable housing. These same health risks need to be addressed for the firefighters who will be sleeping in a new care house from the Blumberg-Freilich project. Blumberg and Freilich, the petitioner for these waivers, are seasoned and experienced developers and landlords with projects in Midtown Manhattan, Brooklyn, Chicago, and Arizona. They are well positioned to design projects that comply with our new zoning. I have attached reports below of their expertise in real estate. If they can deal with New York City zoning, they can deal with ours. Please deny these waivers and let the developers return to the planning board with plans for a project that they and our community can be proud of. And I'm going to read you the signatures. Kevin Borden, myself, Jackie Brownstein, Karen Cathers, Janet Chapman, Mackenzie Clark, Laura Dene, Liz Elkin, Kay Gray, Renee Hack, Teresa Horgan, Kira Kinney, Ron Knapp, Elizabeth Lee, Howard Leibovich, Judy Mage, Kristen Missick, Jim O'Dowd, Janet O'Dowd, the New Paltz Climate Action Coalition, Gary Parameswaran, Alex Passos, Barbara Peterson, Leah Pittman, Yakov Pittman, Janelle Potter, Ellen Rocco, Tom Rocco, Carl Rodman, Roger Roloff, Renata Russell, Joyce Sheffy, Susan Schur, Cheryl Silver, Craig Shankles, David Smith, Susan Stessen, Miriam Strauss, and Tova Weitzman. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Kitty.
Thank you. Juna Keen.
Hi. Great. Hi, my name is Juna. I just wanted to quickly talk about, sorry, my cat is here, the budget cuts and also increased allotment of money towards the police that has happened. So we know that in this new financial, in this new budget, there will be a crunch, but even with that happening, there's a national reckoning on the overfunding of police departments, yet the town board has continued to sign off on New Paltz Police Department hires in recent months, including moving one officer from part-time to full-time and interviewing 2 new part-time officer positions and hiring 2 new part-time dispatchers. There's also plans to convert an existing warehouse into a new police station and courthouse at an expected total cost of over $9 million. The town board is approving these expenditures while the New Paltz Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative, the newly formed state-mandated task force assigned to review and recommend changes about all aspects of police operations and spending, is only in the very beginning stages of their study and has yet to make anything public about their process. Further, the town board has attributed a significant portion of the budget shortfall to a lack of court revenue in 2020. Prior to the shutdown in 2019, the town and village received over $580,000 in court fines and forfeitures. The town spent $345,000, a little over $345,000 of that. And much of this disappeared in 2020, likely because of a combination of statewide bail reform and the pandemic. The important thing to me here is that the viability of the town budget should not depend on these punitive penalties, which in most communities are paid disproportionately by low income and non-white people. So I just wanted to call attention to those factors as the budget is going under review. I think overall, the police don't need more money. They already have a really swollen budget. And instead, I would like to see money go towards community investment in education and the environment and things like that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Edgar? Edgar? Rodriguez?
Good evening, Edgar Rodriguez, resident town of New Paltz. I'd like to second everything that Juna just described to you, the document. There's a lot of support for that throughout the town. I hope you take it into consideration when you look at the budget tonight. Regarding the budget, which is the last item on the agenda for this evening, I would like to ask the board to please give a description of your budget process. By that I mean, what is the timetable involved? When will the final decision be made? And I'm sort of used to the process in the school board, in the school district, which is very clear notifications to the community, times when the budget is made available, et cetera, et cetera. So if you please give a detailed accounting of that, I would appreciate it very much. And I also would like clarification on the so-called funding. And I heard today at one of the police meetings that the property for North Port Connors Road has been acquired and paid for. I'd like to know how it was paid for, and also this this bond. Will this bond go to the public as a vote? And what are the dimensions or the terms of that bond? What percentage? For how long? This puts the public into a public debt into the future. So I'd like to have a sense of that. So again, in short, I appreciate a detailed presentation of the process and a detailed description of the issue of the new police department and courthouse, which are being planned. Thank you.
Neil, I think Janelle and Rose are waiting and have
Yes.
been waiting for some time.
Janelle, please.
Great, thank you. This is Janelle Piotr, and I am the coordinator for New Paltz Climate Smart Task Force. And I really wanted to speak tonight to urge the town board to vote against the proposal by Trans Hudson for a zoning waiver that allows a drive-through window for a restaurant to be built on the property on the corner of North Putt and 299. First and foremost, please remember the pledge that New Paltz Town Board took to become a climate smart community. This pledge and our current endeavor to become, at this point, silver certified climate smart community includes a number of actions and commitments that help the town become a healthier community. These include decreasing energy use, shifting to clean renewable energy, enhancing community resilience to climate change, supporting a green innovation economy, implementing climate smart land use, and engaging in an evolving process of climate action. The main goal of the New York State Climate Smart Program is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Allowing a drive-through window for a restaurant goes against the pledge that this board made as a climate smart community, and it runs counter to the goals of the Gateway District. The guidance set forth in the zoning should be adhered to. Contrary to the claims of the developers, there are not numerous drive-through windows already in existence at New Paltz restaurants. There is a total of 3, and for good reason. In a small community the size of New Paltz, attracting additional local or throughway traffic that exits the highway solely for the purpose of visiting a fast food restaurant drive-through establishment results in a significant increase in carbon emissions from the vehicle traffic. This is the opposite of the Town of New Paltz Board's pledge to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. What I find interesting is that a recent article in Forbes magazine, actually dated just September 22nd, talked at length about why curbside pickup is outpacing drive-through. The article made a strong case for the reasons that customers prefer curbside pickup because they can order ahead, they don't have to wait in line, and people perceive that their food will be hotter and fresher. Why should we allow a waiver that will increase idling and emissions when there's a perfectly good and maybe even preferable alternative? The pledges to decrease energy use and implement climate smart land use would also be voided with the additional traffic brought on by a drive-through restaurant. The adjacent Empire State Trail has been a great success and a boon to New Paltz since it opened. This is a great example of how our community is supporting green space and encouraging a pedestrian and non-car centric culture. Granting this waiver would undo that step and instead promote car use. I also encourage you to vote no on the requested exemption from the zoning requirement for 2-story buildings, a pivotal feature for both the Main Street style and for mixed use. As a member of the Complete Streets Ad Hoc Committee, I see an intact Gateway District zoning as being a key component of moving towards a complete streets vision. Therefore, I urge you to vote against granting these waivers and stay true to the intent of the Gateway District zoning. It is unnecessary as the overwhelming majority of restaurants in New Paltz are successful business and have no drive-through windows. Granting these waivers would be in conflict with the board's pledge and the climate smart community goals. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
So I just want to encourage people, please raise your hand and don't ask to be next in chat. We may not see you. So I know Rose is next, but if people could please raise your hand, it would be very helpful. So thank you.
Well, thank you for calling on me. My own opinions and thoughtful participation in the ENCB letter reflects my views on the Trans Hudson waiver proposal. I am reading a letter now from my esteemed colleague, Professor Emeritus Lee Ann Bell, who couldn't be here tonight. Dear Town of New Paltz, Town Board of New Paltz, I write in strong objection to any plan that undermines the zoning standards for the Gateway District. These standards came from a long democratic process that involved town residents in defining what we want for this district. The board itself approved these standards only a year ago. There is no reason a developer cannot propose a profitable plan that meets these standards. It is outrageous to me that Trans Hudson continues to see ways to undermine them rather than to propose a plan that meets our zoning codes. For the board to approve waivers now will signal to all other developers that we are not serious about the standards we set in New Paltz. Please support the zoning standards you approved and deny Trans Hudson the waivers they seek. Thank you very much. Sincerely, Ann Bell, New Paltz. Thank you.
Does anyone, would anyone else like to speak? Is there, please raise your hand.
I believe Maggie asked to speak.
Okay.
I don't see her raising her hand in chat, but I'm not sure I know how to do it either.
Maggie? Okay, anyone else? If not, one more time, if anyone else would like to speak, please do so now. I don't want anyone to feel as if they didn't have a chance to be heard. If not, I would like to move on to the next part of the meeting. And so we have Trans Hudson here this evening. We have representatives from Trans Hudson to discuss and request the zoning waivers for their project, which is currently before the planning board. And I would like to invite them if they would like to say anything, and if they need me to share the screen, I am happy to do that. I would just need to know who would need to show anything, and I can give you the ability to share the screen. With that, please.
Hi, thank you. My name is Kathy Zelantis, and I'm from Silverberg Zelantis LLC, and I represent the applicant. With me tonight is Justin Dietz from Mazer Consulting. He will need to have the ability to share his screen at some point. And also with me tonight are my client's representatives. So I know that some of you are new to the board or may not be familiar with the long history of this application. I just want to briefly go through it. So just to give you, again, a brief overview, on September 23rd, 2013, BFB submitted a site plan application for a fully zoning compliant development of a CVS pharmacy and a Five Guys restaurant. On May 3rd, 2017, the planning board issued a negative declaration under SECRA, finding no significant adverse impacts. During the final stages of the site plan review, this board on October 3rd, 2019, rezoned my client's property from a B2 zone to the Main Street mixed use zone. That resulted in my client filing an Article 78 proceeding challenging the zoning under SECRA and as unlawful and unconstitutional as applied to my client's property. We agreed, however, to put the litigation on hold and see if we can explore a different approach. So in that regard, BFB developed what you have before you as the concept plan. And again, this is just a concept plan that will go through a refinement, if we are able to proceed forward, of a full site plan review that will be reviewed and refined before the town planning board. So this plan improves on the prior site plan that was the subject of the neg deck in 4 main ways. First, the village has indicated that it supports this plan so much that it's willing to provide water and sewer to the project, which is different from the prior plan. Second, the concept plan offers significant amenities to the town. My client is proposing to construct a municipal parking lot with 19 parking spaces and a restroom that can be used by the public and the community. Also, significantly, the Empire State Trail is being extended throughout the entire property. Third, the concept plan conforms to the MSMU zone's intents. There are numerous design standards in the MSMU zone, and those I'm sure that worked on the MSMU know that full well. And we comply with the vast majority of the standards. So we've created more of a village feel. We have street-facing facades with the parking behind the building, and we have strong bicycle connections and pedestrian connections to the Empire State Trail. Fourth, this is a unique mixed-use development. It's not your typical purely private commercial development. In this development, we're melding commercial and public recreation use with a commercial development. And I just think that a picture is worth a lot, and I think that a visual will have more meaning. So I want to ask Justin if he can to show you the plans so you can see for yourself the progression and what we believe is an improvement. And I'll just have Justin take over now.
Great. Hey, Justin, was I able to make sure, Justin?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great, okay. I do have, the share screen option is green on mine, so
okay, good, thanks.
I'm gonna hit that, and it says that the host disabled screen sharing.
Yeah, let me find you here, Justin. I think I gave someone else co-host status. I got to find you now. Justin.
J Dates.
J, here we go. There you go. That should work.
All right, give it a shot. Okay. Does that everyone come up on everyone's screen?
Yep.
Great. Again, Justin Dates with Mazer Consulting. As you mentioned, just briefly touch on the prior plan. So before you is the, we'll call it the neg deck full development plan for the project site. On the left-hand side, you have Route 299, and North Putt is now along the top of the page. This was the 3-pad site with the CVS pharmacy in the center. We had a 5 Guys pad down the bottom here, and then a future pad with bank and office on the very north end of the parcel. This would have been serviced by on-site septic areas, as well as potable water wells drilled on the site. You can see this had somewhat of a, we'll call it a more typical retail development from the standpoint of parking, with parking along the main highways, and some in between at the rear of the building. This particular plan had just over 21,000 square feet of commercial space on the project site, and had 126 parking spaces. Our main access at that time was the one-way in off of Route 299, and a full service access out to North Buck Corners. At that time as well, this orange dashed line was what we had flagged as the area for the Empire State Trail. At that point, we were looking to grade out shoulders to create level pads along there, and it would be routed around the project site. So it's just a quick overview of that prior plan. Now the current concept plan that Kathy had mentioned. So here you can see those items that Kathy mentioned regarding the mixed use, or Main Street mixed use zoning implemented on this particular project site. We have 4 building pads here, identified in the gray and outlined in the yellow. They meet the requirement for less than or 7,000 square feet or less per the zoning. They are pushed up towards the road frontage, And in turn, that would provide the parking in the back or the rear of the buildings. I'll say the rear of the buildings, but essentially you end up having a facade frontage on the roadside as well as the parking side. This as well has the one-way access in off of Route 299 as the other. That was something that was worked through with DOT, and that is really the only type of access that we could get off of 299. Similar, we had the full access point over to North Putt. This, as mentioned, would look to connect to the municipal water and sewer services. Again, so land area is not utilized for septic and the wells and the protection areas that they have and require. The Empire State Trail, in this instance, once you come over the overpass of the thruway, would circulate through the site and on this eastern side. And that goes all the way out towards North Putt and would connect, our property is just shy of the Freihofers facility on the west side of North Putt. So it would come out in that location. As you can see in this area where Building 5 is located, that's where the proposed restroom facility would be provided, and the adjacent 19 space parking area that Kathy had mentioned. So this would be the trailhead or municipal parking area and restroom facilities with direct access to the rerouting of the trail through the project site. We've also provided various pedestrian access connections to the trail into the site from 299, the intersection of 299 North Putt, and then pedestrian walkways and connections throughout the center of the project site. This layout has a total of 97 parking spaces, and then that would be for the commercial uses, and 19 for the municipal or trailhead parking area. Building square footage wise, as I mentioned, we're around 21,000 on the that we call neg deck plan. We're at 15,800 square feet for the commercial components, and then we'd have a footprint or some square footage for the restroom area. Just details of that have not been totally provided or been developed at this point. I think that's it. If there's any questions on the plans, I'm happy to field them. Otherwise, I would turn it back over to Kathy to discuss the waiver requests.
I have a question. Do you have any photos of the new design? I think you've come a long way on the design from the initial proposal to now. Can you share that with the public at this time?
Are you referring to the architecture?
Yes.
We don't. The prior architecture is what's still our current design. We'll call. We haven't modified those to how it would fit to these smaller pads yet.
But it would be in compliance with the design standards that we put in place with the new zoning. Right. So one of the issues I think that created tension between the planning board and the applicant was that the planning board really wanted to have a say in the design of the structures. We don't have that did not have that in our code at the time, so the applicants don't need to comply with that. That was one of the driving reasons for the new zoning, so that there was some standards that they had to meet. And we have pictures of what they're expected to comply with in the zoning, the new code. Any other specific questions from board members? I also thought that we would if people had other questions, if board members had questions, we could maybe kind of compile those afterwards if they don't have anything, because some of you, I think, are just seeing this now. So.
I had a question.
I can also wait. So would you like, when's the appropriate time?
Now.
Okay, so the bathroom, I wondered, what is the plan for, or what is the idea for who would be maintaining it?
So, I mean,
I can answer that, Julie. We have talked a little bit about it. The applicant does not want to be in the business of maintaining the bathroom, so that's not part of this waiver now. Right now, they're offering to build a bathroom. I think it would be up to the town board and the planning board for, you know, who maintains that bathroom. We would, I think, one option would be that the town takes on the maintenance, cleaning of it. I think that's a heavy lift under the current circumstances. We could also see if maybe the chamber, or if we could maybe sell advertising on the outside of the building, and that might help pay for it. I mean, I think we can be creative, but that's not really part of this discussion, because, you know, I think that's better decided later on. But, you know, we can. You're right. It is a tricky issue because it's expensive, and, you know, we have a hard enough time paying the bills now. But I think that's also up to the public. People have wanted public bathrooms for a long time. It's come up, I know, in at least one mayoral race. We don't have a lot of public bathrooms in town. One, because they're expensive to build, and two, because they're expensive to maintain. So,
well, this isn't very centrally located, and you know, it seems this would require an employee, you know, especially if it's going to bring people from the thruway who want to go, you know, just quick in and out. That's gonna be a bathroom that would be used a lot, and, you know, I would imagine it would need to be cleaned multiple times a day. So, but, you know, thruway rest stop bathrooms, for example, do get cleaned multiple times a day. Otherwise, it's a wreck. So, if there was no bathroom there, would that just be left, or would that be another?
I mean, we could. I mean, I think that the planning board could talk about that. You know, one idea could be a pavilion with bike racks, so people had a place to stop and, you know, take a break while they're riding on the Empire Trail. You know, I think the developers would probably love to not build a bathroom. I think they would save a ton of money. I think the offer to build one, you know, we should, before we throw it out the window because we're not sure how we'll pay for maintenance. I think we can always scale it down later on if we realize we can't pay for it.
Well, I'm not asking anything to be thrown out the window. I'm just asking questions.
But I agree. I think that's going to be a tricky question.
I just also wanted to ask about is there in fact still a retaining wall planned that would basically hold back the fill where it's needed? So like a cement, I don't know, a cement retaining wall that's either slanted or not. I'm just trying to, because I know what the topography is like on the eastern edge, especially near 299. I just wondered if that, because I'm trying to picture where the bike path would go. Because I know there's some discussion of the bike path going into buffer, the vegetated buffer. So I'm trying to figure out, is that in fact still the plan to have a cement retaining wall with some sort of fencing so that people don't fall off it onto the thruway? Is that still the plan?
So I think this dashed line here is the proposed trail location, right?
I'm aware, yeah.
And then this dashed line just above that, that's that 30-foot landscape buffer that you also referenced. So we did propose a trail within that buffer. There's some real estate in between those areas where we'll look to grade it out. You know, we do have some elevation change we need to make up for. Ideally, and for the developer benefit, I don't really want to use retaining walls. I would rather grade it out, but you know, we haven't gotten into the detailed grading of the site at this point.
But, oh, so that's one question that we're not engineers, and it's harder for us to read the plans, but so the grading would go from down from the site down to the edge of the landscape buffer, and the landscape buffer wouldn't be part of the grading at all. The landscape that's there would stay intact and it wouldn't be filled. And the only cutting in that buffer would be for the construction of the trail. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, the extent of the grading, like I said, we haven't gotten into that. But we do recognize the preservation of the existing vegetation along that area. And it'd be a combination of grading, potential walls, saving of trees, things of that nature. Like I said, it's how that all works out with the current layout hasn't been detailed just yet.
I had a question as well, just because this came up in some of the comments we heard, and I think it's important just to understand this as well. But can you guys describe any legal actions you've taken thus far with this proposal, or if you have any intentions at this point, should you not be granted the waiver?
Well, I mentioned that we commenced a litigation challenging the rezoning of our property. That litigation is on hold because we decided to see if we could redesign the plan that was the basis of the neg deck and come up with a plan that was in line with the MSMU zone. And that's what this concept plan proposed. This then, if we're granted the waivers, has to go back to the planning board and will be refined and further developed and go through the regular site plan process that every plan goes through.
And so Dan, to that point, we have, I sent it around at the end of the day, we have sort of an agreement. If we were to grant these waivers, we would be, voting to sign this agreement. And within that agreement, there are, certain things listed why we would be granting the waivers. So we're not setting a precedent for the next person to just be able to say, well, if you granted these, give me mine. Susan in her letter even said, every variance is kind of standing on its own. But, in that agreement, we also reference that, the Article 78 proceeding that has been filed will be withdrawn in the future when final site plan approval is granted. So it's not exactly a quid pro quo, but it does, there are some steps involved.
Gotcha, I appreciate the clarification.
If I can make a point, I'm the liaison. It's David, and I'm the liaison to the planning board, and was at the meeting, Kathy, where the planning board voted 4-2 or 5-2. I don't remember the exact vote, but it was 4-2 or 5-2 in favor of granting the waivers. It's come before us because it was not a unanimous vote, and by the changes we made to our zoning, anything that is not a unanimous vote has to come to us for granting any waivers. So that's why we're here. Kathy, can you explain to the board here and to the public, you had mentioned it's kind of a non-starter for your applicant if you can't have these two waivers, that going through to the rest of the planning process is like you're hesitant, you don't want to do that further planning and ensuring that the water and sewer is there, all that kind of stuff, until you know that you can have these two waivers. Can you explain to us why these two waivers feel so essential to the applicant?
Well, and I can go through the whole basis for our waiver request, which I will do. But essentially, before we expend the time and the resources and the substantial cost of further developing these plans, we have to know that this is a viable plan. The majority of the planning board believes it is and granted the waivers. And that's why we're now before this board requesting that a majority of this board grant the waivers. If we had a unanimous granting of the waivers from the planning board, they wouldn't have been necessary to come before this board. But I can certainly go through the standard, because what's important is that even regular zoning that we've all dealt with before the MSMU allows to have a variance granted. So there's nothing set in stone about zoning. The state law allows you to go before a zoning board and ask for a variance. In this case, your board found it was legislatively appropriate to grant, to define certain items as design standards and specifically allow a planning board to grant waivers of those design standards. And then if there wasn't a majority of the board that agreed, for this board to grant those design standard waivers. And there's a significant number of design standard waivers, but there's a standard for granting the waivers. It's just not something that was, not thought about. It was specifically written into the code for the granting of design standard waivers. And there's a standard in the code that talks about what this board needs to consider to grant the waivers. And we submitted a written document supporting our request for a waiver. And I'll just quickly go through why I believe we've supported the waiver request. So first, we believe strongly that what we've presented as the concept plan and will, if we get the waivers, be developed into a more detailed site plan, it conforms to the MSMU's purpose. And I just want to read to you from the purpose section. This section states that the objective of the Main Street Mixed Use District is to ease the transition from the village to the town and transition away from auto-oriented strip commercial development and extend the village walkable mixed use, quote, Main Street character into the town as properties are improved and redeveloped over time. So again, I just want to point out there's numerous design standards in the MSMU, and Justin's team worked very hard to incorporate the vast majority of those standards into this concept plan. Again, we have a front-facing facade, 4 smaller buildings. We create that village-type feeling. You saw the difference from the other plan where that was just a typical shopping center that you usually see, to this plan that really goes to great lengths to incorporate what this board's intent was. We have a mixed use development. There's no requirement to have housing as a mixed use component in the MSMU zone. The other part of the other purpose of this, the purpose section of the code says the Empire State Trail traverses this district with pedestrian guided to Main Street and bicyclists directed up North Putt Corners Road to Henry W. Dubois Drive. Development in the MSMU should be organized and designed to support a multimodal transportational system. So I believe this project is the opposite of an auto-dependent project. You have significant walkways proposed, as you can see on the plan. The Empire State Trail goes through the property. Residents could come to the property, the community can come to the property, they could park their cars, they can get on their bicycles, and they can go visit all other parts of New Paltz. I understand that the extension of the trail through this property completes the trail system. I believe that without this development, bicyclists are going to get pushed back into the busy streets that surround this property, and that's a disaster waiting to happen. Extending the trail through the property is really a solution to this dangerous situation. And we have represented that once this trail is constructed, once my client goes to the cost and expense of constructing this trail, they will either convey it by easement or convey it altogether to the town, whatever the town prefers. And that will be addressed as part of the site plan review process. And we consent to a condition that the trail be conveyed to the town and by whatever method the town prefers as a condition of any granting of site plan approval. But there are real practical difficulties that prevent BFB's conformance with the 2 design standards that we're seeking a waiver from. So retail uses on the 2nd floor, these are all retail commercial proposals. It's just not practical. The vast majority of retail spaces are 1 story. And the suggestion to build some other use over these commercial retail developments is just not feasible when my client is already expending money on a development that doesn't realize any return, like the trail, the parking lot, and the restroom, or whatever the board ultimately, or the planning board ultimately decides in lieu of the restroom or the restroom. So we cannot construct some other use that won't cover the cost of construction when we're already undertaking construction that it won't realize a return on. Planning board members have commented that the second floor retail is just not viable. They've commented that they do not see this site as appropriate for residential development based on the proximity to the thruway. And one member even commented, since the COVID-19 pandemic, he can no longer support the type of density that would come about with a second occupiable story at this location. So again, for the drive-through for a beverage use, drive-throughs, I just want to be clear, drive-throughs are not prohibited in the MSMU zone. The only kind of drive-through that's prohibited is one for a food use. And we've designed it so it fully complies with all the architectural requirements. And it's in the back of the building. It meets every single standard in the MSMU zone. The only standard it doesn't is for food use, even though other types of drive-throughs are allowed in the MSMU zone. So again, we had to adjust our thinking as a result of COVID-19. And this is a new world we live in, and the retail tenants are requiring drive-throughs. No food use establishment will agree to lease a space without a drive-through. And the planning board members commented, many of them did, that this is really no different than having curbside pickup. And in fact, it would be more organized to have a drive-through. There's also no potential adverse impacts to surrounding properties if you don't apply these two specific design standards while meeting the whole host of other design standards. We're proposing less density than allowable. It's less dense than the neg deck plan. Consistent with the building inspector's interpretation, she interpreted the code that the placement of the trail through the buffer area does not require a design standard. And so this is a unique circumstance before this board. The property location is unique. The project is unique. It's proposing a municipal recreational use, and it benefits not only this project, but the rest of New Paltz, because commuters can park, or community and the visitors could park in this municipal lot, and then they could use a non-vehicular means to access other parts of New Paltz. And that's consistent with this town's objectives. So we understand that we still need a variance from the zoning board for the second occupiable story determination, because we understand that the building inspector determined that it's not only a design standard, but a bulk standard. And we also understand we need to go back to the planning board. Again, this is just a concept plan that's going to be refined. But my clients really cannot incur the costs of that goes into retaining consultants, preparing plans, going to land use board meetings, and bringing this plan to the next level that it needs to be brought to if it does not have a viable plan. So that's why we are requesting tonight, so we can proceed with this project and go through the rest of the land use board review process, that this board grant the requested waivers.
Thank you, Kathy.
Kathy, can I ask you?
Yes.
You spoke, you said a lot of words that I wanted to try to see if I could summarize. For example, if someone asked me, I'm not sure I could summarize your reason, especially for the not having the 2 stories. And I wonder is that in writing somewhere?
Yes, we put in a letter to the board.
We have that in the board packet tonight.
We submitted an October 5th, 2020 letter to the board that
also available to the public there, Neil?
I would think so. Yeah.
So already it's on.
I think it's probably on the town's website in the meeting packet, but I could check with Kathy.
Okay, so sort of in simple language, you explain why that's a difficulty.
Yes, I went through the standards in the code and tried to set forth our reasonings for why we fit those standards, and it's appropriate for this board to grant the waiver. And it is a requirement to request that right now, which we have done.
So I don't want to cut you off, Julie, but if you don't have any, do you have anything else?
This is Alex. I just have a quick question that has to do with the parking parking. I know the municipal lot area. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for your wonderful explanation. Is this municipal lot area going to allow for overnight parking? Like, can people, like the park and ride, are people going to be able to leave their cars there? Or is this going to be just day use?
I mean, I think that's going to be up to the planning board. I don't think my client, well, maybe not overnight for snow or plow removal. I don't know. I think that's something we're going to have to delve into in the planning board review process.
I would think no, we would not want that.
Right.
I think because then it's the same with parking meters, right? We really want this to be used by, as many people a day as possible. We don't want people parking long-term and taking up the spots. So I think we would certainly have some control over that. I don't think that the applicants, go to Tops or ShopRite, no one allows overnight parking in their lots. So I guess we would not want to allow overnight parking here.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my concern was just because it's so close to a biking area and to like a recreational area. Obviously parking is at a premium, and people are going to want to park their cars. Are they going to take up space that would be for the shops? So the question just arises: will there be enough room for people who want to do the recreational part, and also for all the people that want to use the business? It can become an issue. So I just was curious. That's all.
I think Justin maybe could respond to that, but we tried to look at the guide of the code for parking, and I know that it's been designed to separate the two areas so that people that want to use the trail go to a different lot than the people that perhaps want to go to the shops. But the parking does conform to the code, and I believe the code has restrictions on the number of parking. But maybe Justin can speak to that, because I don't think the intent was to load up spaces with parking. Correct.
From the trail, I'll call it the trailhead parking area, I almost envisioned something out by Lowe's, where they did that small parking area next to the trail. Ultimate use time and things like that, like Kathy said, it could be worked through. And then yes, the parking for the commercial was laid out, and quantities based on the zoning numbers at this point.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, I just wanted to make at least one or two comments here. So I know that we talked about these waivers, and the town boards. It's not typical that a town board makes waivers like this, but this board specifically put our ability to make these waivers into this zoning. And David, it was at David's request, and David can correct me if I am wrong, but I have always thought of it sort of like a pressure relief valve. I think we really stretched, and we made a lot of big changes with these code changes. And we knew that asking someone, in particular, an applicant that was partway through the process, or an applicant that may be submitting a plan to make all of these changes may be difficult. So I think David maybe can speak to it, but we intentionally put these in there so we would have the ability to grant these waivers. Not that we will always grant them, but I think that we realize that there might be a need. I know that these are not popular with a lot of people, but I wanted to go through a little bit of my thought with this, and I welcome people to have a discussion with me. I've had this discussion with several people already, not online. And if someone wants to come by my office and talk about this, I will try to convince you of why I actually support this project. And I think that this is a good project. You saw the original project as proposed, very, very car centric. This may not be the bike ped utopia that we want it to be. It's not Water Street Market, but Water Street Market is not right off the thruway either. right? So we have to be, have to recognize that, you know, there's a location and that certain things get built in different locations. But I wanted to talk a little bit about why in particular I support this, and I make sure I don't miss anything here. But you know, so I really like the bike ped addition, and especially the Empire Trail going around the backside by the thruway. In my opinion, you know, Dan, I think you're wrong. This is not a net negative. This is a very, very positive addition. We do not get to control the access off of 299. DOT has decided that the access can come off of 299. And so that makes this, in my opinion, very dangerous for people to cross there. Yes, some people will continue on into downtown, but this provides a safe alternative for people to not have to cross the entrance or the exit. The other thing is I just wanted to kind of game things out to people, and this is kind of how I have thought about this. The applicant filed what's called an Article 78, and Kathy or anyone else correct me when I am misspeak and I don't know the details, but this Article 78, the way it's been explained to me is they filed this Article 78 sort of as a placeholder, because once we redid the zoning, there is a window of time where you are allowed to file a lawsuit against these changes, right? This is the only Article 78 that was filed. I think of it as a placeholder as well. If we decide to not grant these waivers, there's a very good chance that we will be sued, right? It's not a guarantee, but let's talk about best case scenario and worst case scenario. The best case scenario is we get sued. We may or may not have insurance that covers it. If we have insurance that covers it, we still have a $10,000 deductible. So we're already out $10,000. If we win the lawsuit and we require the second story and the no drive-throughs for food, the result of that is the applicant has already said it. By adding all of those other things, there is not enough money to then build the bike path, the bathrooms, and the parking lot. So we've won the lawsuit, we're out $10,000, and we get no bike path, and we get no parking lot, and we get no bathrooms or whatever we decide to do. That some people may consider that a win. I don't know if I agree with that. The worst case scenario is it's not even the worst, it'll get worse. We don't have insurance, and we have to go to court. Daniel sent a letter in. He estimates, an attorney told him that would cost the town about $60,000 to fight that lawsuit. So we're out $60,000. Once we begin suing each other, the bike path is probably off the table. So we get no bike path, we get no bathrooms, we get no parking lot. If we win the lawsuit, we're out $60,000 and we get no bike path, no bathrooms, no parking lot. If we lose the lawsuit, we can then, we're probably going to get sued on seeker. And the argument would be that we did not take a hard enough look when we made these changes. We can appeal that, which will cost us more in attorney's fees. And then we'll have to redo a lot of the environmental studies that we had to do to prove that we really did take a hard look. So we're probably talking another $50,000. So now we've probably spent, you know, anywhere from $125,000 to $150,000. And say we win that lawsuit, we get the exact zoning that we have now, and we still don't get the bike path, the bathroom, and the parking lot. I don't consider that a win. And I also am saying that under the current financial strain that we have, if you stick around to the end of the board meeting tonight, you're going to see that we have close to $1 million shortfall because of COVID. Whether I can convince this board or any board to come up with several hundreds of thousands of dollars to potentially fight a lawsuit and maybe redo, oh, and I didn't even get to the worst part. If we then lose the appeal, my understanding is that the zoning gets thrown out and we're back to the old zoning. And we could see the CVS and the Five Guys, everything that we've worked 5 years on for this site would be gone. And we'd have to start all over again. Maybe that's overly pessimistic and that's not true, but that's the way it's been explained to me. And so I look at it as let's try to figure out something that we all walk away with a little bit of a win here. And maybe that means trading away the second story and a drive-through that serves food instead of a drive-through that maybe serves a bank or maybe 2 banks. So, you know, that's how I look at it. I have to say that if this current board, if we had to come up with a couple $100,000 and the time and the energy to redo all of the zoning and fight this out in lawsuits, I think it's hard with COVID right now and the uncertainty that we have. So that's my argument to the people that, you know, you're my supporters, and I agree with you, Janelle and Rose and Ingrid. Like I agree. Like we could do better, and maybe we should hold everyone to the highest standard. But in my opinion, I don't want to let the what is that, perfect be the enemy of pretty good. And if I have to, you know, say, well, I think we're almost there, that's my rationale, and that's why I am in favor of supporting this project, and I'm willing to try to come to some sort of an agreement, which is why I asked that the applicants present this to the board, and you know, that's all I can say. I think we're in a tough situation here, and I'd like to see what the other board members have to say. We're probably not going to vote on this tonight because we just got the agreement. I also want people to understand who are in this meeting what we're up against as a board. You know, it's one thing to say let's hold everyone's feet to the fire and let's be perfect. It's another thing to say let's try to figure out a win. And for me, in my opinion, the Empire Trail going around away from the road is a very big win for this, and it's worth making some concessions for. So with that, I will let someone else talk. Anyone? No one?
Well, I'll say that, you know, I have a lot to consider. You know, this is really new, and in terms of having heard the arguments that people, you know, your argument and arguments that people have presented in their letters, and so I'm very much in favor of not voting tonight. And I think it's just sort of an odd position to be in, because I'm still not clear, for example, what this bike path would be like. I don't know where the trees are being cut to. I don't know.
The bike path,
like the vegetated buffer.
That's not part of what we would be waiving, though, Julie. Right? The whether or not it's in the buffer is really up to the ZBA.
But so I'm trying to say that you know, to what extent do I appreciate, you know, what you appreciate? It depends on what it looks like and where it is. You know,
can I just wait? I'm sorry. Can I just weigh in on
I'll just say one more thing though. And for example, the bathroom, I'm very concerned about the maintenance. It doesn't seem, you know, it's going to be incredibly costly, and there's no answers. So it's sort of like you're weighing in on something that doesn't have a lot of answers. So Kathy, feel free.
So I just want to point out that the proposed location in the buffer has been determined not by the building inspector to not require a waiver. So we're not before the board seeking a waiver. That's consistent, the building inspector determined, with the zoning, with the MSMU zoning. Look, if the town board ultimately determines it does not want a bathroom and wants something else, that can be fully fleshed out in the site plan review process. That again has nothing to do with the waivers. And there could be changes, of course. We'll listen to input from the town board in the process of going through the site plan review. So if this board determines it wants signage on that limits parking or anything like that, we can comply with that because we still have to go back to the planning board.
What you said about if I could go back to what you said about the buffer and the bike path, I'm still not getting it any clearer from you.
So the environmental committee
where the cutting would be up to, where the existing trees would be up to, because I heard Justin say he recognizes that we would like existing vegetation, but that doesn't mean that it will stay there. So maybe it will and maybe it won't. But you know, it looks like from this drawing we're looking at that the bike path is on the, you know, along the thruway, but you know,
Correct.
So it's at the thruway level.
No, our site is quite a bit higher than the thruway.
So when you, as
so
soon as you fill it with 10 feet of fill, especially toward 299, you can't keep those trees because they're buried.
Well, I don't know where that 10 feet came from.
But
well, that's what it used to
Julie,
be.
there's no buffer required along 299. The buffer is
No,
required.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when the bike path comes, you know, is along the thruway, you know, paralleling the thruway. Is that, where's the cutting line? Where are the trees no longer can no longer be existing trees?
Well, we don't have that line developed at this point, but to get the trail through that buffer, yes, you know, we would need to take down trees.
No, I'm just looking at
Justin,
the
let me.
on the other side of the trees at this point, of the trail at this point, right?
Hmm?
So in order to raise the bike trail to the level of the development,
I don't think that's
No, I
being
think you're-
proposed.
We're not there yet with the details of that, but we're also not looking to put this trail up on top of a wall like you're speaking of.
I just can't picture it. Maybe it's me. I'm really happy for you to explain though. Can even if it's not, can you do any, you know, get any closer to explaining about where
So
how the
Julie,
topography would work with the bike trail? I'm really hoping Justin will answer.
okay.
I'm happy to. Sure. So as I said, the thruway sits down substantially low from our project site and where our boundary is shared with the thruway right of way. So, you know, it's low down on the south east corner, and it climbs up as you get to the center of the site. That's where you can see it's like the shale, kind of like outcropping here on the right of way. So the idea is now, you know, from a design standpoint, we also have to meet slopes on the trail, right? It's got to meet ADA accessibility slopes, which we need to work with. But we would work with those to bring this down. You know, as you know, we're up, again, our site sits down from 299. So we'd be coming down into the site to get to, you know, as close to existing grade as we can, all right? So that there would not be a wall. That's our ultimate goal, is not to have this trail sitting up atop of a wall, right?
Well, so it's a goal, but is it what you're doing? You know, is that the plan?
No, that is not the plan. I'm saying that that's not the goal, right?
No.
So,
but you're saying the goal is to not have that.
correct.
So I remember back couple of years ago, number of years ago, that was what was being discussed.
Well, no, that was, I mean, I think you're referring to the prior plan potentially, where we did have.
Sure, but I didn't know that the
where we did
grading
have the
was
wall
changed as
along
well.
here.
I just hadn't heard that. So
Justin, didn't that prior plan require significantly more fill than this plan is going to require? Or isn't that essentially that neg deck plan is more impactful than?
Yeah, we did not run any numbers like I said, but that's, you know, the fill was a big point that we were working with the planning board. You know, the amount of fill that we had at that point. You know, the mixed MS MU zone does tighten that up a little bit to keep things more in line with existing topography. So right now, sitting here, I would anticipate that yes, that number is definitely going to come down so that we work with the zoning, the fill amount. Is.
Okay, and so you don't know what the.
No, we don't have. I don't have any numbers at this point to share on those pieces.
So
Kathy
you're
mentioned.
saying though it's significantly more compliant with the existing topography.
It would be, yes. That's what we would be looking to do.
So maybe that's where my disconnect is. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments, questions, discussion?
You know, I just wanted to chime in and say that I really appreciate both Neil's analysis of it and also a lot of the feedback we got from the community as well about this. I'm going to be perfectly clear. I'm really proud of the zoning that we did and the process that we used to do that. That was not an easy process. It involved a lot of the community members who are on the line today as well. And I don't love the idea of deviating away from that. I also have real concerns about the viability of the zoning should it face a legal challenge. I think Dan had addressed that, and I will be honest and say that that is a real concern for myself. And what I would say is that I would like it if, whether this is something that is an executive session conversation with an attorney or at a meeting, I would like to understand a little bit more of our legal options prior to us voting as well, just about the ramifications one way or the other.
Yep, I'll chime in. I feel very similar to Dan. I hear our constituents speaking loud and clear about, I don't like the idea of idling cars waiting in line for food who are just using our throughway exit as a place to get quick food and go right back onto the throughway and leaving their pollution for us all. I don't want to support that drive-through concept in general. And I'm also, you know, really thinking about Neil's analysis, and they've come a long, long way on this project to meet so many of our standards. I mean, the planning board voted 4 or 5-2 to say, we want this. We want this. We're saying yes to these design, to approving these design changes. And I was really interested to see that happen and the discussion of why. And I also don't want to vote tonight. I want you all to be able to speak to some of the planning board folks who have been meeting after meeting for years around why they are feeling ready to move forward with those changes. And I would say, Neil, that our ability to approve this was a pressure release. It was, if, you know, we were thinking of making the planning board have to come to a unanimous decision to approve any changes, and it was to not hold them to that standard, but to allow us to take that pressure off and move things forward if we thought it needed to. So I want to talk more about it. I do agree with Dan that speaking with our attorney and getting some advice, and with I don't know if Rick would be the attorney on that, but also hearing from Rick. He's been there for a long way too, and so that we can consider all of our options. It's a really tough decision.
I just want to add on my part, sort of new to this project, and I agree with David. It's a very tough decision. You know, there's you know, the nature side of me that, you know, loves New Paltz the way it is, and every time, you know, your jerk reaction is that every single time something new comes down the pike, you say, oh, it's going to change New Paltz forever. But I also know we said that about Water Street Market, and we said that about many other things that came to New Paltz, and some of which we enjoy every day, and are a big part of our daily life now, that have brought great joy to lots of people. So I I thank you for your descriptions and for, you know, your patience describing all of this to us, and would also like to just think about it and talk about it more with the board.
I will arrange a meeting with our attorney, and he can explain. You know, I have spoken to Rick and Joe, our planning board attorney and a town board attorney. I'm happy to afford the entire board the same opportunity, and I'll make sure that happens. I'll try to find a time that works for everyone, so everyone's questions can be answered.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you for your consideration. We appreciate you taking the time tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
And with that, I would like to make a motion to approve items 2A through 2F on the consent agenda.
Second, Alex?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we are number 3. This is acceptance of additional services proposed from Alfandre Architecture for 59 North Putt. This is, they needed to do some additional design work to increase the stability of the building, because buildings for emergency services are held to a higher standard. And so I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposal for additional services.
Second.
Just a question, Neil. It's all within the budget on this project.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. And with that, we have I'd like to, so the next item is, this is a resolution establishing a capital reserve fund to finance a playground at 59 North Putt. We have this resolution on the town website, but briefly, I had a conversation with Chief Lucchese last year, and he said probably 4 times a week there's a divorced parents, because every divorce doesn't always end amicably. They decide to transfer custody of their children at the police station, and this probably happens 4 times a week. And this is it's recommended as a safe place for custody transfers, exchanges, but especially if anyone is concerned. And so, as the chief said, he told me about this happening last year. Happens about 4 times a week at our police station. There's also some concern out there that this can be upsetting for children, because it just highlights the fact that there's tension between their parents. And so, one of the things I was thinking of is, let's build a playground. And so when I talked to, I brought this up to Jim DeLon, our county legislator, and he said, well, I'll see if I can get some money from the county, and maybe they can help out with this. And, maybe it'll make this, horrible experience for the kids slightly less horrible. I used different wording when I told him about it. But, and so he's going to be asking the county for this, but he also mentioned it to someone else he knew. And that person said, well, I'm going to give you $1,000 right now. And so someone's already donated $1,000 to help us build this playground. And so I wanted to create this reserve fund, and that way we put this money into the reserve fund, and if anyone else wants to donate, they can. And if we can get some money from the county, we can kind of make this happen. We've talked about this new building not being just a police and a courthouse, but also that's where we're going to have town board meetings and planning board meetings, and community groups are going to be able to meet there. So, I'd like to have a playground there. Right now, the budget's really tight. There may not be enough money. If there is, there is. If there's not, we're gonna have a space set aside for it, and we'll build it eventually. But this is to get that ball started. So that's kind of the background for that.
I'll second that motion, if that was a motion, Neil.
Was.
Just one quick question. What is the timeline that you foresee on that, Neil? Like a year? Like what's your, like as far as the budget goes, trying to raise that money?
We hadn't, the building is going to be completed in July.
Mm-hmm.
If we can raise the money, we've asked the county to see if they could give us some money. The budget at the county is in rough shape as well. They may not have it. We're going to keep asking.
Need? Like how much money would you need?
Well, Kathy, we kind of looked through some playground, different books. We think we could build a pretty nice playground, with some handicap accessible facilities, maybe a swing set, like something that the kids spin around on that I didn't even think they made anymore. But when I saw it in the book, I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. We had one of those when I was a kid. I didn't know they were still legal.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but like, $10,000 to $15,000, I think we could build a nice playground. Certainly we're not talking Hasbrook Park here, or even Moriello playground. There's something that, the kids can have fun for a little while and make their, a little bit better.
Yep.
So.
It sounds really nice. And I wonder, because others might be interested, how would it be in where the trees have already been cut, or would there be trees cut for this?
It's where they've already been cut. I think it's on an area that's, kind of set aside as a reserved area. If we ever need to expand the septic, it would go there.
Great.
So it's going to be grass now. And, this plan would be to put, because I mentioned this to Andy Willingham when they were designing it, and I told the board all about the committee that's doing it, and they all thought it was a good idea, but we don't have the money right now for it. So that's why we're trying to get, that's why I keep asking around, trying to get the money somewhere else. Because I'd love it if we could put it in at the same time we're doing everything else.
It might be worth it, Neil, also talking to a couple of different companies who might be able to, donate in kind some of the fees of the materials themselves, say, hey,
And just to add to that, Alex, some of the folks who are gonna make some nice money on this project, asking them to give a little bit back for the kids, I think that's a great ask, and you may get some donations to make it possible.
Absolutely, yeah. I love asking people for money, so I'll start thinking of people.
And this is really the first step. For us to accept donations, we need to have a dedicated reserve account so that people know that we just don't spend it on scratchy tickets or something. That it gets put towards what they've said they want it to go towards. So,
I'll second that motion again.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
I hope it works out. Let's see, where are we now? So we have a budget discussion, and then we're gonna have a discussion about parking, and then the highways.
The October warrant.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the October 2020 warrant in the amount of $1,521,814.63.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so next is the discussion of off-street parking on Springtown and surrounding roads. David, Alex, I'm happy to get it started. We talked about this last year. We've implemented some no parking areas as we've had more problems with them, and we said that we would always be willing to revisit that over time. And the way we wrote the law is we just amend the law and we're adding in new no parking sections. And so there's some places where we'd like to add some no parking, and we can have a discussion about it, and then off to you guys.
Neil, can you just clarify, is the way the law is written that just that whole zone up there by Gatehouse and Butterville and that, or is it like through the town we have a no parking law that we can just add streets to? And I think Chris is on the call too, so he might be able to weigh in.
It's for the whole town, and we have to add, we have to be very specific for the exact location. The way the law is written, it'll say from this intersection so many feet to this point. right? And it has to say exactly in the code, you know, what the area is where there's no parking. And then the signs have to be put up in that area. That's how you defend the if someone contests the ticket. So it's town-wide, but only in areas where we have to then define the no parking area.
Yeah.
And so,
Alex, did you want to start the discussion?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this started mostly because we've noticed 3 or 4 main areas that have had traffic issues. Obviously, you know, driving down Springtown all the time, there's parking on either side of the bridge. And again, I'm one of those people that really encourages biking, hiking, rail trail. I think it's great. I'm on it all the time. But the traffic on Springtown before and after the bridge has gotten so dangerous. You know, I did talk to Chief Lucchese about it, and I know that you can park on the on either side of the line. But what happens is that they open up the doors, and you know, God forbid, a young child comes out, and I'm in my truck with my trailer. I can't stop for that kid. And I see big trucks going down Springtown all the time, so that's obviously a hazard area. Also, this past weekend in the boat dock, it was packed in the boat dock on Plains Road. And then there were cars all the way up the road, you know, probably 15 cars or 12 cars up the road in front of people's houses. Again, I think Neil had said something about Gatehouse, the same thing, you know, once the parking lots get full, and it's happening, I think we're noticing it more, obviously, because there's just this onslaught of, you know, people visiting and more cars wanting to come out and enjoy everything that we have here in New Paltz, which is great. But I do think that once you get outside of those parking areas, you have to be really careful because you're starting to create serious hazards. So we've identified with talking to Chris and talking to Rob, and I'd also like to talk to the fire department, because I think for them, it's also really important for them to have access to these areas and not get, you know, stuck in roads where they can't get through, and make those no parking areas according to the law. Like Neil said, you'd have to be very specific. It would go from this point to this point. But I think that it would really help not have problems in the future. And I think it's something that we probably should deal with sooner than later.
and so my preference is, you know, and we've talked about this, and when we did the no parking areas last year with this law, you know, my preference is that we identify areas where there are problems, and then we fix those problems instead of having a big, you know, brush that goes everywhere. You know, like, so when we see something that's a problem, and you know, we had a lot of complaints about some of these very places last spring, and we're like, let's wait and see if it continues to be a problem. And I think for some of them it has continued, and it in some cases it's gotten worse, which to me points out that, well, maybe we do need to address it with the law. By changing it and making it no parking areas. You know, we certainly don't want to make everything no parking areas. And yes, I think there are going to be times when, if you know, we're going to play whack-a-mole with this, and that people are going to then move to a different place. But you know, I think some of these places, they're drawn to a access point, and they may not park a mile away to get to that access point. You know, these are attractive nuisances. And we've kind of looked the other way until we realized, like, okay, we need to do something, right? So
and I think Neil, that's what we've seen with the initial experiment, certainly on Butterville, where you'd want to park there to access the River to Ridge Trail, and there's no one's parking there. There's you know, no parking signs. So where are they? Well, they're on Pine, up and down Pine. Which is creating its own challenge, but it's off a main road. And they're, you know, selectively on the top of Gatehouse, because you can access via a little gate there. I think it's not just people that when the parking lot's full, I think it's also people who don't want to pay for parking. But you know, I think we want to work with neighbors who are like, we're fed up. We don't want to do it anymore. And we are approving, you know, no parking in front of our homes, which is, you know, it's an inconvenience for them because they have to call the police, or they have to say, hey, we're parking our own cars here. So I think working with the neighbors is the way to go, and kind of adding slowly to it. I've spoken to folks on White Oaks Lane. I'm in communication with them. That's the first main road off of Gatehouse and 299, first side road. They're asking potentially, they're just confirming this with their other neighbors, for the first 400 feet from Gatehouse on both sides of that road, via kind of what Neil's saying is, like, they're not likely going to park, a quarter mile down White Oaks Lane to access the trail, but they do want to park right there on the corner. And those neighbors' homes are kind of filled with cars. So, I think we handle it, let's take a step at it, and then let's let it go for a year and see where we go next year, and say, yep, it looks like we have to address more.
David, I really agree that I think it's important to get feedback from the residents of these areas. I'm very reluctant to, without letting people know and then just putting no parking signs in front of their houses. I know we've talked to the chief, and they've said, well, if someone, is having a birthday party for their kids or something, and they call the police station and say, oh, all my friends are coming over and we're going to need to have people park on the street. The police will try to not give tickets out, but it's not a guarantee.
Yeah, but what one neighbor on White Oaks had a very nice idea. He said, why don't we just have a pass that we put on our front, we have a family pass that you put that on your front windshield and say, please check with us, this is a family car. And it's not likely the police are going to ticket that, and they'll most likely knock on the door, which is what the chief said they try to do anyway, is knock on the door and say, hey, is that your car out there? Yep, it's okay.
Right. Right. I mean, I think all of those things are really important. Neil, like you said, this was an issue in 2 or 3 of these places last year, and I thought, and maybe it'll go away, maybe it's seasonal, maybe it won't be any worse next year. And it's gotten worse, and I definitely have had neighbors come to me, knowing that I'm on the town board, saying, hey, what can we do? This is a real problem, and they're worried about the children, or people coming out of their cars. They're worried about traffic going through and hitting one of the cars because they're on the edge. So it is a problem, and the neighbors they are discussing it, and they're trying to figure out, how to take care of it. And I think if we make sure that the neighbors think it's a problem and are okay with it, and if we pick the places that are repeatedly an issue, like you said, it isn't just, hey, a bunch of people decided to park here this weekend, but I think it happened with Craigswood. A couple of years ago, it was a big issue. It's happening on Springtown. It's happening over by the boat dock. So yeah, they're really only like 3 or 4 places right now that I think are a big issue. And if we could, preempt there being, God forbid, a problem with anything, I think it would be wise.
Yeah, I mean, I can't be the only one that is guilty of parking in these places, right? Sure. I want to go to the bridge over the Wallkill, but I don't want to ride my bike all the way from town. I want to show it to my brother when he comes to visit or something. So it's like, we'll just park here on the side of the road. I mean, I think we're all guilty of that,
right?
And I think that's the problem, right? We all
but
do it
also,
once
the one
or
thing
twice.
that I mentioned about that spot in particular, because it is a real pull, because it's a lovely bridge, is that there is an area underneath it to the right where you can actually go to the river. It's really beautiful down there. I walk down there all the time. That would make a great gravel parking lot where people could go and safely park their cars down there. And it would take everybody off of Springtown Road. Obviously, this is next year into the future when we actually have money. But it would be a really lovely area. And I've talked to 1 or 2 of the neighbors there, and they'd rather have the cars there than they would right in front of their driveway. So
that's good to know.
Yeah, that's a plan B for the future.
Yeah, I mean, so I think we can start putting this list together, circulate it amongst ourselves, and we can amend this law. And I think it's important to do it. Yes, the tourist season is maybe finishing, but we want to make sure that the snow plows don't get impacted. I think that's been brought up once or twice in the past, and I've been told that was one of the reasons for Craigswood. And so we will probably have to do it before the winter.
Right. Well, I'm happy to get on that if you want.
Okay. Yeah, I can send you the I'll send you the current laws that we have as a kind of and just show you where you need to, the text that needs to be written, and maybe make sure run that by Chris. He knows a lot more about this than we do.
Okay, and I'll also run it by the neighbors to make sure that, let them know if we want to write a letter supporting what we're doing and saying.
And then we'll have to have a public hearing.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
And Alex, I'll work the White Oaks. I'll work with the White Oaks neighbors to get their agreement, so you'll know that what they're on board with, and we'll add that at the White Oaks folks. I haven't heard from anyone else. I heard from Woodlot folks a year ago, but said if it's still a problem, give us a call. So they're the only folks I'm hearing from up by the gateway.
Okay, and Julie, if you could also get me a letter from your friend who's up from the boat dock where they park in front of his house, that would be great. Yeah. Cool.
And where the boat dock is that?
That's on Plains Road.
That might be in the village.
Yep. Oh. Yeah. Right.
Oh,
Never mind.
we can bring that up for the joint meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to see if everyone is okay. I would like to talk about maybe go to the town budget discussion next before we start talking about 7 and 8. People okay with that? David and Dan. So I guess maybe we can start off. Do you guys want to? I would like to maybe make a motion to pass the tax cap override law, and then we can talk about the budget. Just get that out of the way. Even if we can meet the tax cap, I'd like to have the backup plan that at the last minute, if we need to override it, we have the ability to. So
I second the motion.
And so discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I guess with that, I would like to, I know Dan and David, if you guys want to take it over, we've been having some discussions just back and forth. If you guys want to, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Dan and I met with Gene for a fair amount of time a few days ago, really trying to dig a lot deeper into the budget, and not only the budget for the next year, but the state of our finances for this year, which is concerning to say the least. So I want to go over some data with you and some information. And this is Gene's hard work and detail. Gene is now estimating that our revenues that we depend on for our budget, obviously not property tax revenues, which we get, but other revenues which we depend on to make our budget work, that we're going to be about $475,000 short on revenues this fiscal year, that she believes, in her words, will not be collected this year. Just because I know you're going to ask, 165,000 of that is from courts and fees, about 200,000 from the solar lease not happening yet, $15,000 from the community center, lack of revenue in the community center, another $84,000 from lack of revenue from Moriello Pool. And those are the big numbers. And then there's some smaller details as well. But the important thing to know is that our revenues are going to come up drastically short. I want to suggest to the town board, I feel like we've been very much of the attitude that if it's already in your budget for this year, it will approve it. And I'd like to suggest a different course of action. And that is, and to really ask our department heads who have budget control and spending control to not spend your approved budget just because it was approved last year. That budget was approved under very, very different circumstances than we are experiencing right now in our community. And really want to ask that everyone think of the municipality as a whole, not of how is my department doing? Am I within my budget? Do I have the right to expend money because it was approved one day? And we have a stopgap at the board in that, correct me if I'm wrong, Neil, but anything over $1,500, whether it was approved or not in our last year's budget, we have to approve that expense the board has to approve. And every once in a while it's part of the consent agenda or something. And my suggestion is we take a much harder look at those expenses and make sure any expense that is not contractual or paying down debt is like that. Those expenses are just taken if they're urgent emergency only. We don't know. This COVID situation is extremely unpredictable. The sales tax and other support from federal and state governments is highly uncertain. And any kind of relief from the government is just not assured. We don't know what next year is going to look like. So I believe we have a responsibility to end this year with as much in reserve as possible to meet what will be a great uncertainty coming right next year. And until we see real certainty of things returning to normal, that we act extremely judiciously and cautiously around expenses for this fiscal year. So really want to ask, we enter a time of, hey, we have to be much more careful with those expenses and ask all department heads to really look at their budget as what can I contribute to reserves this year, not what can I spend to fulfill my budget, to spend my budgeted amount from last year. We need everyone on board pulling in the same direction. And I think that has to start from the board messaging that way. So I'm going to stop there. And if there are any questions, Gene probably has more of the answers than I do, but I do want to talk from more of a philosophical way about how we're moving forward during this uncertain time from a fiscal standpoint.
I mean, what I can say is I think, we've tried really hard as a board to not lay anyone off. Other towns and villages have laid people off. I think if people are very careful with what we spend and don't spend, we can maybe make it through this current year without laying people off. But people need to watch their budgets, and maybe if you can put off buying something this year, even though you have it in your budget, we might make it. If not, I think layoffs are more likely than not. The next thing is we're going to talk a little bit about how do we reduce the current budget that the town board has before them. And I don't know if you guys want to talk about that.
Yeah, and actually, before we hit that topic, I certainly am in very much agreement with what David said. And I just want to know, in order to send that as a clear message, would it be helpful to do that as a simple resolution, which would just say that we're going to put a hold on all non-contractual expenditures pending either your approval, our board's approval, or you and Gene? Is there a format that you think that we can act now that would best achieve that goal?
Well, we have, right now we have some limits set in there. I think that the town, we've approved, I think almost all of them. And part of it has been like, everyone has said, well, I really need to spend this money.
Yep.
And I think, 6 months ago, 4 months ago, I think there was still an outside chance that, we thought maybe some federal aid would be coming, or maybe the state aid wouldn't be cut by 20%. But so far, the state aid is getting cut, and the federal money is not coming anytime soon, right? I certainly don't think it's going to come this fiscal year. And so that means maybe it'll come next year, who knows, but it's not coming before January. And so I think it's more important than ever that we really tighten our belts. And just because you can buy all of next year's toilet paper in December, and then you think of that as a way of saving money, it's not really saving money. You're spending the money that would otherwise go into the fund balance or help out another department. So it's not a good plan to, well, if I had it in my budget, I'm going to spend it now, because I think
Can
we
we
may be
codify
forced.
that idea in a resolution now? That would be helpful to you in working with our department heads to achieve that goal.
Yeah, I mean, we could put a spending cap, we will be passing a lot more paperwork back and forth. But that's fine. We could do that. Anything non-contractual needs to be okayed by Gene. And then we could have it go to the same spending limits that we have. Above a certain amount, I was allowed to do it. At very high levels, the board had to approve it.
Yeah, Gene mentions contractual, if they're not contractual obligations, payroll demands, or debt commitments, it's got to be urgent and emergency type of funding at that point. I like your idea of a resolution. I feel like we already have that stopgap. I think it is just a difference of our thinking about those things, and kind of like, don't come and ask for a 30,000 this or a 40,000 this or a 20,000 this. Is like, if you can't make a really clear case why this has to happen right now, and why it can't wait, can't wait for more certainty in our economic environment on the board. So I'm okay either way, Dan. I'd want some of that language to come from Jean, so that she really understands what she's going to be up against, and if she's the person who's going to make that first call, and then they can appeal to the board, whatever it looks like, so that it can not add to the already stressful situation that we're in.
So then I would say, I think we're pretty clear on what we want to see here, Neil. And if Jean or yourself feels that we need to codify that at our next meeting, I think we can. But I think for our purposes now, I think we all are acknowledging the situation we're in.
Well, I want to hear from Alex and Julie for sure about how they feel about what we're saying, because they haven't been part of some of these conversations, and I want to make sure they get time to ask questions and do whatever they need.
Just one thought right off the bat, and this comes from being a business owner. You tend to look at the bigger ticket items when you're trying to save money. Where the big dollars in the budget. But I found that if you start to incorporate the philosophy of saving with the little numbers, I think, Neil, what you said about the toilet paper was dead on. It seems ridiculous sometimes, it's like you're going to go out and buy more pencils, more pens. You're going to go out and, maybe, hey, let's get 2 new front tires for that truck, or let's go, so they might be smaller ticket items, but they really add up in every single department. So if we can start getting that philosophy into the different departments, that if they can also start looking at the little items and say, if you don't absolutely need that for this year, and you can, borrow it from the person working next to you, or you can just, not use it until next year. I think that really adds up in a surprising way. Because I was looking at the budget, and, the tendency is to look at anything over $20,000. But if you start looking at some of the smaller ticket items and start adding them up in all the departments, you can really save a whole lot of money. So I think that's important.
Yeah, and I think it's just a change of philosophy on everyone's parts, that we're all thinking of the whole and ultimately of our taxpayers, because every dollar we spend that we're going to need to replace, the taxpayer is going to have to replace that dollar. And so I don't think it's a time that we want to be overstressing our citizens beyond what they're already stressed dealing with.
That's exactly what I was going to chime in with. So, I think it's laudable of you guys to have done, some work, a fair bit of work already on this. And, I'm on board trying to do what we can to especially make the people lives easier after such a difficult year. So, sorry, if you were suggesting that Jean could help with some wording of the proposal that you were making. Is that right? So we're going to hear from Jean next. Is that the next step?
If a codification of, if Jean feels like we need some additional rules passed that would protect her ability to make certain decisions beyond where we already are, which is, you know, anything over 1,500, you know, 500 to 1,500, Neil has to approve, and 1,500 and above, I believe the board has to approve. So we're already protected on some of the bigger items, but I really don't want to lead from that place as a board. I want to ask the department heads to join us in, like, let's see if we can get through this together, all together, without furlough and layoffs, which are inevitable next year if this is going to get worse and we're not really tightening our belts now. It's probably, you know, we probably needed to move on this a little faster, but here we are. And I think we want to really work together on not making any unnecessary expenses that, you know, we're doing great things and great services for our community, but I think the greatest service we can do to our community right now is to make sure we get through this together, and that no one has to, you know, sell their home to get out of town because they can't afford the taxes anymore and they just can't afford to live here anymore. How do we keep people, our community members, whole?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to kind of maybe highlight that I think, you know, individually, I think a lot of the department heads are doing a lot of what we've asked them to do. They do look at the little items and the big items. I think part of it is just the way it's structured is that, you know, people, they know their own budget and they're trying to keep track of that.
Yeah.
But they also don't necessarily know what the revenue streams are that are coming in unless they're within their own department. And so our job as a board is to kind of bring all of this under, you know, a single understanding, bring everyone up to, and that's what we're trying to do. And that's why I appreciate what Dan and David and Jean are doing, is to let everyone know that, you know, we're part of a multiple departments, you know, multiple budgets, but ultimately it's all under the town budget. And so what we're trying to do with this meeting is to let everyone know that, okay, you know, individually, you may think you're doing great. Collectively, we all need to kind of pull together. And if you can do something, put something off. We're not asking you to, you know, I'm not thinking of the right analogy, but, you know, you wouldn't say, well, I'm not going to, you know, change the oil in the truck and destroy the engine because I just saved the money by not changing the oil. But if you could, you know, maybe put, you know, defer some maintenance for 1 year that doesn't damage anything, but, you know, saves the money for 1 year, now's the time to do it. Right? Yep. What can we put off in the short term that doesn't have dire consequences? But, you know, look, we're, you know, the same thing that you would do at home, right? With your own budget. Like, you know, my car, the transmission went on the car. We're not buying a new car. We're even waiting before we fix the transmission. You know, eventually we'll fix the transmission. You know, that's what we're asking everyone to do. And I think department heads know that better than we do as a board. And we're asking them to work with us on this. Make those decisions and don't say, well, the board approved it, I'm free to go, right? Because you're not helping yourself, and you're not helping the taxpayers and your employees. Because just because your budget is fine this year does not mean that your employees don't get laid off. That's not how it works.
And, right. And to that end too, Neil, of working with our departments on this, the other part of the conversation that we had with Jean, and I know this, you know, this is going to sound like a big number, but we have talked about this. We want to request tonight that our department heads provide us a 15% reduction from their approved budget from last year. And I just want to be clear. I know that is a lot. I'm not at all suggesting that we're going to cut 15% of our budget. Also, just so people understand, with fixed costs, that doesn't mean that would be a 15% reduction on taxes by any means either. But I think that we need to be honest about the situation we're in. And, you know, we really, at this point, I feel like we're kind of living in the tale of two New Paltzes. We have really great New York Times features on the awesome things we have. Our House housing market is up, we also have a significant amount of our population who are struggling to afford medication and food. And we also have people who have significant mental health tolls as a result of the pandemic. And the list can go on and on. And I'm not at all suggesting that we should cut 15% of all of our services. I would argue that because of the pandemic, there are certain human services that we need to rely on even more than we've already funded. But I think that we need to ask our departments to take a deep look at those budgets and say, if we had to do 15%, what would that look like? And I think that's far more constructive than us as 5 board members sitting around and just doing that willy-nilly on our own. I think it's important to look at what 15% looks like, hear from those department heads, hear from our community, and make the decision about whether, you know, is this a loss of service that we can survive in a year? Is this a service that because we're in COVID times, we actually need to increase, which I think is a real possibility as well too. So what I'm proposing tonight and what David and I have spoken with Jean for is to request that all of our department heads, and that includes us as a board too, provide a budget with a 15% decrease, what that would look like, and then give them the opportunity to speak with us about that in a public and transparent setting. And then for us to make that determination if we want to do 2%, 3%, 15, 20%, or give them 5% more. I don't know yet, but we have to have those conversations.
Thank you, Dan. I want to just add, the goal in mind is a 0% tax increase, not a 4.3% tax increase, not a 1.9% tax cap increase. We're looking for a 0% tax increase to our taxpayers. And Jean feels like this is the starting point to that goal. And so it does sound like a lot, and it is a lot. And but we'd like to try to do it without layoffs and without furloughs of any kind, and see if we can get there by postponing costs and by saving money so that we come into reserves. We come in to end this year with more reserves that don't require us going to the taxpayer to fund every dollar. Because the problem is that the revenues that are short $475,000 this year, we have very uncertain revenues coming next year, and we have to assume conservatively that we're not going to get you know, a regular year. So we have to start from a standpoint of a great deal of uncertainty, and this is Jean's really clear counsel to us, and Dan and I both agree, and we're asking you, the rest of the board here, to join us in asking for this.
And I do want to add one thing that I forgot as well, just to fully let people understand the urgency of this. 2 hours before our meeting started, the Senate Majority Leader said that he rejected the deal that the House and the President had agreed to, which would require additional funding for municipalities. I don't know if anyone listens to The Daily, it's the New York Times podcast. There was an entire conversation specifically on this issue and about the likelihood of it passing. It is unlikely to pass anytime soon. That's going to have dire consequences, not just on us, but every level of government. I think there is a good chance at some point we will get it, but there will be significant damage by the time we do get it, if we get it at all. And we would be foolish at this point to bank on getting any money. And I think we need to assume that we're not going to, and assume that the state also, likely having these same issues, very well could have cuts to things that we're anticipating we're getting revenue now on as well. So I don't mean to be bleak. I'm just trying to be transparent and honest with the public. This is issues that every community is dealing with, and I just think that we need to be honest and deal with it head on.
And I think what you said about asking each department what a 10% cut would look like or a 15% cut would look like, not saying that that's going to happen, but it starts having them look really carefully at their expenses and thinking, again, like what Neil said, what's absolutely necessary and what isn't. Because it is an extreme situation, obviously unprecedented, and something that a lot of these departments have never had to deal with before, but it gets you into that mindset, knowing that it could get worse before it gets better. What is it that we could live without for the next year? So I support that.
I do too. So Jean and I will work with the department heads. I would like to move quicker on this. And one idea talking to Dan and David is that we set a special meeting for 1 week from tonight to revisit these ideas and have the numbers back. The department heads will get their numbers back to Jean. She'll redo the budgets, and then we will meet next Thursday at 7 o'clock and discuss these again and see what we can do. And
mention this to you before the meeting, Neil. I realize that is when we're holding our police
I know
when we're using the same Zoom account. So I actually am wondering if we can do that on the 29th.
29th. We could probably do it on the 29th. But I think if we're going to do it on the 29th, then I would like to make a motion to set the public hearing for the budget meeting for November 5th at 7 p.m. We can do that tonight.
That works.
So do I have a second for that? My motion is to set the public hearing for the budget presentation for November 5th.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we will have a special meeting on, you said, Dan, the 29th at 7 p.m.? I don't have my calendar in front of me.
Thursday.
That's a Thursday.
Thursday, the 29th, two weeks from this evening, we'll have a special meeting.
And just to be clear, this is just a special meeting for the budget. We'll have all the time for the budget. We're not going to put new items on the agenda for that meeting.
Just the budget. That's it. Yeah.
Good. Do we need to approve that meeting date, that special meeting date?
But I think I can just set it, but as long as everyone can make it, I think I'll talk to the Rosanna and we'll have that noticed and set. And so for that, so then at the same time, as I just said, we're going to only discuss the budget, but I'm wondering about items 7 and 8 on the agenda, if you want to discuss those tonight or discuss those on the 29th. This is the highways budget modification and the New Paltz youth hire. I mean, I'm happy to discuss those tonight. I just didn't know if people wanted to talk about them at all or put them off for 2 weeks. Originally, I was thinking about putting them off for 1 week and it wouldn't matter, but 2 weeks is a lot longer for some of these things. So it may not make sense to put them off for 2 weeks. Do people have any thoughts on those?
Chris has been on the call, it looks like, for the whole time, or so, a while anyways. So that would be probably nice to do the highway.
I'd want to ask Chris to tell us, if we are saying these expenses for this year, if this is an emergency expense? Is this an expense that can be put off in lieu of a lot of uncertainty in our budget right now? That's why you waited to put these 2 items on, Neil, right? I mean, these are 2 items that are right in that category of, do we need to expend more money?
And if we're going to be asking you to cut your budget by 15%, are these things that you may want to put off for a year or not? So that's the issue. So, that's my only reluctance in approving those tonight. Jim's is a reduction in the total costs by replacing people and with someone with lower pay and other working fewer hours, but it also my preference is I like to look at things all together when I know all the information, and the department heads didn't know what the board was going to be asking of them tonight. So
I'd like to request these items be added to that, that they put that in part of their budget and see if that fits with the amended budget that we're asking for on the 29th.
Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
I'm fine with that approach as well.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So we will table items 7 and 8 until the next meeting, but we will have those as part of our budget discussion, even though they're regular items. So just so David's, we're going to talk about the budget only. We're not going to be talking about, I'll try to keep it off. I prefer, I think we should have a full meeting where we just talk about money. That's my preference. I don't like to do other things at special meetings because I think it's kind of, shady. So with that, we have the only other thing I have. Personnel. So the last item, we added this on personnel. Let me find my place here. So this is I'd like to, this is related to Officer Cisco. And this is we have a stipulation of settlement in the case of Officer Robert Cisco. And we have, I'd like to make a motion to sign the settlement agreement with the, so I have my wording here, is it with, the PBA has agreed to it and Officer Cisco has agreed to it. And this would be the town board agreeing to it. And I'm happy to go over the terms with that and discuss it, or,
I think we should go over the terms.
And so this is, so for some background on the case is the town board. This is for Officer Cisco. We suspended Officer Cisco for violating several town policies, police policies. And we, per union contract, what we are allowed to do with when an officer violates these policies is we can go to arbitration. And so we have been in arbitration with Officer Cisco. We've been advised that this is about as good as we could do. The arbitrator indicated that it was probably not a fireable offense, even though that's what we requested from the arbitrator. The town board's request was that Officer Cisco be fired for what he did, and but that was not likely to happen. And the best we were able to get was a 120-day unpaid disciplinary suspension, inclusive of the 30 days that unpaid suspension he previously served. He will be subject to a last chance disciplinary period for 48 months. He will issue an apology to the town of New Paltz, including its citizens and the police department. And he will also be required to engage in community service totaling 20 hours. The type of community service will be determined by the town in conjunction with local LGBTQ plus community leaders. If they are interested in doing that, we would welcome any input. And so that's where we stand with this. And
just in addition to that, Neil, thank you, is the last chance agreement is part of the key to this settlement. Because the union contract is so strong in protecting its officers, this will give the town board the opportunity for dismissing Officer Cisco if there's anything that looks like a repeat offense of this without further action. We have the ability under this agreement to do that if anything happens in the next 4 years, which feels quite protective to us.
We were told that's on the outside edge of what is normally granted. It's on the high end, and we pushed for a long last chance agreement because we think that does give us the more say in the officer's actions going forward. And just to be clear, it goes, the town board still doesn't have the right to fire him under the last chance agreement. It's determined by the arbitrator. But
I see. Thank you for that correction. And just want to.
But his behavior, previous behavior, it's severe, and there's a much higher chance he would be terminated versus the first time he did it. You know, so even though it's the arbitrator, it's not just a slap on the wrist. So that's what we've been told.
And just to say, this is, we have every hope that Officer Cisco is ready to come back and be an integral member of our police force in a good way, and is regretful and will share that with the community in full, and wants to return to good standing in the community.
Also add to that, David, if I may, I think it's important to note that Cisco is going to be required to engage in community service totaling 20 hours, and that the type of community service will be by the town in conjunction with local LGBTQ plus community leaders. And I think that that's a big part of his coming back around and working with the community that he offended, which I think is a very positive thing.
Yeah, and so I mean, you know, this whole idea of arbitration was new to me, and I think maybe to the rest of the board members as well. And I wanted to talk about, you know, some of this when, you know, we learned a lot, I think, with this. You know, one of the things that, you know, we learned is, you know, one of the possibilities could have been that if we, if it was handed over completely, if we refused to engage in trying to reach a settlement with Officer Cisco, it could go right to the arbitrator. And, you know, one potential is that they're not allowed to, they don't do last chance agreements. So by negotiating, we were allowed to negotiate a last chance agreement. If we just handed it over completely to the arbitrator and refused to try to reach an agreement, we wouldn't have gotten a last chance agreement. And I think the last chance agreement, I think, provides us with a lot more, a much stronger guarantee that we have some control over, you know, if Officer Cisco has not, you know, learned from this this incident, and I hope he has. I agree. I think that, you know, my hope is that we learn from our mistakes as individuals and as a society, and we get better. And I hope when Officer Cisco comes back, he is an advocate for and a strong proponent of LGBTQ plus members, and maybe realizes that, you know, what he said was hurtful and to many people in our community, and we all get better.
Yeah. You know, I just wanted to say too, I just think it's important to clarify that if an arbitrator determines that he has repeat behavior that mirrors the original incident, he would actually not be eligible for a hearing and would be terminated. I also just want to go on record and say, you know, I actually previously served on the Hudson Valley LGBTQ Center's board of directors. I don't think this is a unique thing to say. I have members of my own family and friends who are in that community as well. I was, and I am, really bothered by what happened. I think it really hurt the reputation of our community. It unfairly hurt a lot of people's reputation in this from a single individual action. And if it were up to me and up to me solely, I would have rather we had the ability to terminate the officer, considering a number of factors with this. That's obviously, based on what we've learned, was not something that reasonably would have happened here, and this is the best scenario that we are able to get. I think that the last chance agreement is incredibly important because had we gone forward, I think that should an incident have happened again, like the one we saw, we would have very little recourse. But in this case, we would be able to have the desired outcome that we originally was looking for. And my genuine, and I really do mean this, my genuine hope is that the officer in question proves us wrong for originally wanting him to be terminated, and that this is a learning experience for him and our community. And that is my true hope for him and the situation.
All right. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the signing of the stipulation settlement.
So, yeah, we're approving you as supervisor to sign
To
this
sign
Neil,
this.
on behalf of us.
Yes. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And with that, I think that's all she wrote.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Night, everybody.
Thank you to New Paltz community. Thank you.
Yes, thank you to the New Paltz community.